All right, guys, hello and welcome to another one of our Friday Night Hotspot FNO Preview shows. Welcome to the That USA Twitch, and hope that you are here for another good show, another good panel discussion about our upcoming Friday Night Ops event called Feel the Love. And we've got a really good panel with representatives from Fort Worth, Houston, and Albuquerque on with you, and we will introduce ourselves to them here. And with me tonight from the Fort Worth ARTCC, we have Martyn Musick. Martyn, hello.
Howdy.
We have Mac Kraus, the facility engineer. Mac, how are you?
Hello.
From Houston, we have Josh Seagrave. Well, I should say welcome back to the panel, Josh Seagrave. Josh?
To be back. Hello. Sorry, happy to be back.
We have also from Houston the event coordinator, Michael Larosh. Michael? Michael's muted.
I am here, I swear.
There,
Hello.
Michael is here. Very good. All right, and last but not least, and most recently featured on the stream, I think, was 2 ago, right? Was Ali Robison, the air traffic manager for Albuquerque.
Good morning. Hello.
Morning, and Evan Bradley, the events team member from Albuquerque as well. Evan.
Good day.
All right, guys. For those of you who are new to this series and don't yet know who I am, I will go around the room and give some introductions. But I'll just in the narcissistic sense, I will go ahead and introduce myself first again, not assuming that you all know who I am. But my name is Rob, and I'm the host of a Twitch aviation live stream called Slant Alpha Adventures, and it's a channel on Twitch where we feature on old school radio-based navigation, so the type of navigation that you do before the advent of a GPS or a flight management computer, inertial nav system, or any of that fancy schmancy RNAV capability that I'm just too stubborn to learn how to use. So if you wanted to ever know how to navigate using just those old school radio-based navigation stations, VORs, NDBs, and that sort of thing, it's a channel that you should probably check out. Again, it's called Slant Alpha Adventures, and the usual show schedules is Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday nights, U.S. Eastern Time, 7 p.m., notwithstanding when we're doing things over here on That USA's Twitch channel. So we would bump our Monday show for this, and that's what we're doing again tonight. But happy to present to you this series that we call Friday Night Hotspot FNO Preview. Before we get any further into tonight's program, let me take a moment to introduce the rest of the panel to you and let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So, Martyn, why don't you start?
Hey everybody, I'm Martyn Musick, ZFW, Deputy Air Traffic Manager. I've been simming since 2002 with Flight Simulator 2002. Joined VATSIM in 2019, and since just worked through the ratings, and now I'm the DATM at Fort Worth.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. And Mac? Did we lose Mac again?
Oh, push talk didn't go there. Mac Kraus, the facility engineer at Fort Worth. I've been at Fort Worth since 2015, sort of VATSIM around then, and just been simming and enjoying myself since then.
Very good. All right, from Houston, Joshua.
Hello, I'm Joshua. I think people who tuned in last time I was on will have known me as the Houston DATM.
That's right. Congrats on the promotion.
I've got myself. Thank you very much. I have the office with a view now.
Or my condolences for the promotion, one way or the other.
Yeah, well, it goes both ways, I think. I have been flight simming for probably 15 years now. Joined VATSIM in 2015, made my way out to C1 at VAT UK in Houston, and have been a member of VAT USA since 2020.
All right, very good. The Houston Events Coordinator, Michael.
Hello. So, just like, I swear I'm prepared for this.
It's okay. Deep breath.
Yes. But unlike some of our more, at least from a sim perspective, I've only been simming for a very, very small handful of years. And I originally started back in New York, where after many pleads and bribes and whatnot, somehow Houston managed to convince me to come down here. I don't know how, but they did.
Well, Josh was very charming, so.
This was prior to Josh. So.
All right, Michael. I know, and I do owe an apology to you. Of course, we talked about this off stream, but Michael was one of the stars of our famous lost episode of the Friday Night Hotspot FNO Preview, the very second episode that we did, and we had a great panel discussion with representatives from the not so scary FNO, which was I think it was Houston, it was Jax, and who was the third one? Was Memphis?
Albuquerque.
Albie.
It was Albuquerque. Okay. And so, yeah, and unfortunately, that whole panel discussion recording got lost to cyberspace. But it's good to have you back on, Michael. Glad you're able to make it back to us. Speaking of Albuquerque, our Albuquerque air traffic manager, Allie, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Allie. I'm the air traffic manager at Albuquerque. Position I've been in since 2017, something like that. Been on the network since 2007. Actually, a week from Friday will be my 15-year anniversary on this network. So, wow. Yeah, I don't know why, but
more
here
than
I
half
am.
Your life, is that right?
Yeah, more than half my life.
God.
I joined 2 weeks after I turned 13, and I just turned 28. So, yeah,
crazy.
Pretty crazy. But yeah, been at Albuquerque that entire time. Yeah, happy to be here.
Very good. Welcome back to the panel. And last but not least, Evan Bradley, the events team for Albuquerque, or half the events team.
Evan Bradley. Joined VATSIM in 2017. Been simming since I was born because this is just a simulation. Nothing's real. Originally started out at Houston, was their events coordinator. I'll leave that alone. Originally under Brandon Barrett, who I'm currently channeling by drinking alcohol and exercising my liver. And bounced around for a little bit, came back and found my home here at Albuquerque with our awful ATM. She's just the worst. I hate it here. Somehow got roped into the events team again, working with one Bobby Melton.
Gotcha. So so you
sure
hate it there, but the hours suck and the pay sucks even more, so you stay.
Yeah, the pay's awful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got roped in because I was like, hey, you should be on the events team. And he's like, okay.
No, you said, I'm clicking the EC button on the website. You're on the events team now. And I'm just okay.
It was one of those involunteered, right?
Yeah. I will work for a 135 operator.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Yeah, I remark every time how it's so crazy, and it's such a great community in that regard, where you have, folks that are in the aviation industry that do this for a living, and then they come onto VATSIM, and then they do it as a hobby in addition. And the resources that you bring to the community are fantastic, especially for the up and comers that are looking to get into the industry. And they all, they have this great resource of people, this great network of people that they can look to for guidance. And kind of like we're doing tonight, avoiding some of the common pitfalls. It's a great resource to give to those people that are looking to get in and start making their way up the ladder without kind of hitting some of those common missteps that they might otherwise hit. So very cool. Pleasure to have you all on, and I appreciate you spending some time with us tonight. We are talking about the Feel the Love Friday Night Ops event, and you can see on the Albuquerque website that we have up in front of us is the event banner. We can also come and see on the VAT USA website. That's the first thing that comes over, of course, because it's the one that's coming up this week. But a great tool if you want to know what events are happening within VAT USA is to come to here, vatusa.net, Pilot Tools, Events Calendar, and that brings up the current month. You can go forward or back from there, but you can see right here on the 11th is the ZFW Presents Feel the Love FNO. Mac, why don't you give us an overview of the theme of the event, although it seems like it might be a little, it's not subtle, but go ahead and explain it to us anyway, like we're five.
Feel the Love is, might be a little explanatory there. Feel the Love, we've been doing it for probably 5 or 6 years now, if I remember right. The Valentine's Day event, usually on Valentine's Day or around Valentine's Day, and it's for Dallas Love Field, just kind of bring the theme together.
Dallas Love Field, and the thing I love about Didn't even mean the pun there. The thing I love about flying into Dallas Love is that the call sign of the local call sign there is literally Love Tower. Love Tower and Love Ground. We do Love Tower and we do Love Ground. So I don't know if we love delivery, but
somebody has to, right?
Yeah, right. All right, very good. So Mac or Martyn, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the facility there, Dallas Love, and what we can expect. What are the major features of Dallas?
Yeah, sure. I'll tag in for this one. Currently, Dallas Love is running single runway operations, so we are going to be simulating that for the duration of the event. So everybody can expect to arrive and depart either 1-3 left or 3-1 right, depending on what flow we're in. Right now, if I remember correctly, we're forecasted south flow, so landing that 1-3 left, but halfway through the event, we may actually be switching to north flow and landing and departing 3-1 right.
Okay, so they're doing construction in the real world on the other runway, or is that?
Yep.
Gotcha.
The runway's been ripped up, and I think they're in the process, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think they're in the process of relaying it again, or maybe they've already relayed the asphalt and everything for it, but it's still not open yet.
Gotcha. All right, and so you guys are going to be crazy enough to try single runway ops for a Friday Night Ops event, huh?
Yep.
Should be a fun one. Well, I guess DCA is no different. Very good. All right, and you guys will be staffing up Dallas Fort Worth as well?
Yeah, DFW will also be staffed.
Okay, gotcha. And of course, you got a few more runways there.
Yeah, just a few more at DFW.
Right. Okay, so there's DFW. Yeah, lots of, you get a few runways there. Excellent. Okay, gotcha. All right, Houston. What's the plan for staffing at Houston?
Yeah, I'll tag in for this one. Houston is staffing primarily Houston George Bush Intercontinental Airport. It's important. We will be staffing, I think, Hobby as a secondary, and we might have some of the Class Deltas that are lying underneath the Bravo, but that's not been confirmed at the moment.
Okay, gotcha.
But primarily George Bush, if for no other reason than more runways is more better. But it also being sort of, the major airport, especially now with Southwest flying out. Houston George Bush has 5 major terminals, 2 cargo terminals, 2 FBOs, a ton of GA parking. So it's sort of for something like this, it's the go-to airfield for us in terms of
capacity-wise, right?
Yeah.
All right, very good. And last but not least, over in Albuquerque, you're all going to be featuring Phoenix, which I think we talked about recently.
Yeah, Phoenix. And we will actually be live for this event. So the entirety of the Phoenix Tower cab will be at the event. And I'm going to go with a majority of the P50. So our main approach sectors will be live at the event. Your departure controller might not be.
Gotcha.
I'll be on center, so I'll be there. But yeah, our entire tower cab will be. Phoenix also has entire south side of Terminal 4 is Southwest, north side is American. So if we're doing Southwest stops, we can go Dallas Love, Houston Hobby, and Phoenix, and they're all pretty decently sized Southwests.
Gotcha. You said the Southwest. Carrier. Southwest is all on the south side.
Southwest is all right there.
And American is up here.
Yep, and over on that left side of Terminal 3, which I believe some. I guess we'll get into that later.
Well, we can touch on it now. And then we were talking about how some simulators have it, or right.
Yeah, you might not have that in your scenery. I'm not sure about freeware because I only fly stupid piston aircraft. But but if you're flying Delta, United, Frontierit, Spider, Furit, or whatever they're calling themselves now,
right.
Go over that side.
Right. Very good.
We also have a decently sized GA operation on the south side next to the South Cargo Terminal. So feel free.
Yeah, I had trouble finding that last time because this airport diagram actually doesn't label it as such.
It is
Cutter
Aviation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And it's the only FBO on the field.
Gotcha.
Well, there's the cute little hangars on the north side by runway 8.
hangars.
Yeah, they're hangars. They're not. It's not an FBO there, but
It's
there's
not an
hangars
FBO,
there.
But
Gotcha. Very good. Okay. Speaking of general aviation flying, though, like I have said before, since my own live stream focuses on general aviation, I feel like I do kind of owe it to take a quick diversion before we get into the meat of the discussion and talk about some of the good GA flying opportunities that abound for this event. So since we're talking in Phoenix's airspace, let's stick with them for right now. And we've briefly touched on last time, but if you could maybe expand a little bit on some of the Bravo transitions that come through the Phoenix airspace. I'll switch over to the tag chart.
Yeah, Ali, do you want to hit on the Bravo transitions?
Yeah, I talked about them last time, so I'll talk about them this time. So we have the east and the
There you
west route that go up over the field. So you'll request that from Phoenix approach, either Phoenix A approach on the north side or Phoenix Q approach on the south side. They will either assign you the east or the west route. So for an east flow, you'll get the west route. If we're in west flow, you'll get the east route. And you basically fly over the numbers to the other side of the numbers of the runways on that side. So on the east route, you'll fly over the 2.5s and 2.6 numbers, and on the west route, you'll fly over the 8 and 2 and 7s. It's a great way to kind of get from the north side to the south side. It's a great view for seeing the chaos that's going on down on the ground.
Hopefully not too much chaos.
We embraced the chaos. We had a great time a couple weeks ago. We're gonna have a great time this week.
Yeah, we were nowhere near our AAR on Send 'em to Phoenix or whatever it was called. Escape the Cold. There we go. And
good. Well,
yeah, we want to test our controllers, see if we can
there you
get some
go.
more planes
Right.
from there.
You guys heard it.
I can
Fly
another
Phoenix.
question.
Go ahead, Josh.
Because I've never flown them before, but the Phoenix VFR transitions, are they at a set altitude, or is it a sort of
typically 4,500 to 5,500?
Interesting.
And,
okay.
Towers airspace goes up at 3,000 in that weird little. Actually, if you can go back to the go back to there.
Mm-hmm.
Towers airspace is that weird like Batman symbol looking thing.
It's a bow tie.
It's sure. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Bow tie.
So if you're below the Bravo, but still looking for the transition, you're actually going to call approach, even though that's Towers airspace. It's only Towers airspace up to 3,000.
Right. Okay. So you stay with approach the whole way.
You'll stay with approach the whole way. So if you're VFR not talking, but you're squawking mode Charlie because you're within the mode CVIL, yeah, you just pick an approach sector and they'll get you to the right one, and we'll get you through the transition. But don't call as you're approaching it. Call a little bit out because it takes a second to ID you and all that stuff.
Sure. Yep. And and obviously you have to remain clear until you hear those magic words cleared into the Class Bravo airspace, right? Or through. Yeah. Sometimes my philosophy is always like, whether you're going through it or out of it or into it, you still are entering the airspace, right? So I always just go cleared into, regardless of what the operation is. But yeah, you're correct. You do hear it any of those ways. And we talked about the pronunciation of this particular golf course. That's the south reporting point. Can someone remind me, please?
Ahwatukee.
Okay. Or as we like to say, VPOG. Okay, very good.
VPOG.
All right. General aviation.
I think at the live event we're gonna put out a bounty for every pilot that says Ahwatukee wrong. We're gonna take a shot.
And anyone that says Gila Bend.
Gila Bend.
Gila Bend.
Yeah, I've had to be real careful about advertising what the ZDC shot tradition was, because people started, I think, like doing it on purpose. And because I'm a live streamer, like I can't have people triggering, my alcoholism on stream. So we kind of had to start keeping that on the down low. But anyway. All right. While we're talking GA stuff, Houston, why don't we talk about some of the GA opportunities we'll have around here? And will you have any of these miners staffed, if you know?
So, at least from the staffing perspective, we're not planning to, but obviously if we have an abundance of controllers, then we do positions, and there's a chance they might be, but plan that they won't be.
Okay.
So, just like with the P50 and the D10. The I-90 does have an abundance of, or probably not an abundance of, but very busy class D fields, mainly as it relates to the business and general aviation
Gotcha.
markets. If you look directly west of the finals for the 8s and 9s at Bush, you'll find David Wade Hooks, which recently has probably been one of our busier miners.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
I know the gentleman who loves to staff that, so
yes,
that's kind of cool. So we
a
may have to
good
pay him
old
a visit.
resident tower controller.
Very good. So
But
that might be one that's worth a visit if you're flying general
yes,
aviation around Houston. Very good.
yes,
We'll keep our
very
fingers crossed that we'll have a tower controller there.
hopefully.
All right, very good. And so my apologies to the chat for calling me out on having the wrong Bravo up on the screen as we were starting that conversation. But thank you guys for setting me straight. Whoops. All right, back up into the actual D10 now. So Dallas, let's give us an overview of what you're going to have up here for general aviation enthusiasts to fly around.
Yeah, for the D10, we're going to have both east and west satellite positions open, at least approach-wise. I don't think we're going to have any local positions.
Okay.
At least, but for the D10, pretty much split right down the middle. East-west is the Dallas satellites on the east, and then the Meacham satellites on the west side, which would be, I think it's going to be M and N. November Mike will be the two approach sectors.
Okay. All right, very good. And you guys have quite a number of towered fields in this Delta.
Yeah, lots of towered fields. There's no published transitions, but if we are landing to the south, there's a corridor over top of DFW east to west, and also directly south over top of Love at 2500. But then north flow, those kind of go away because of how the departures work off of Love. And then you'll have to go either around probably to the north or to the south at 2000.
Gotcha. Long time ago, like one of my earlier streams, I did a departure out of Love that went westbound, and they took me right over top of Fort Worth, which was really cool. All right,
it's
very
great.
good.
Some of the departures from Love.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I love those transition routes that go right over the center of the primary airport. Really,
I will say
stuff.
if you're in North Flow at Dallas, going into Addison, if you have good scenery, incredible. Going north into Addison, you descend right essentially over downtown Dallas.
Oh, nice.
It's really amazing.
Oh, wait a minute, this is Alliance. Which one's Addison again?
ADS, just north of Dallas, Love.
Oh, okay, got it. This one here. Oh, yeah. I had trouble spotting that one once.
Expect extraneous vectors, but
right, yeah.
Fun approach.
Yep, very cool. Yeah, I had trouble spotting. That's like a bunch of railroad tracks and stuff that go past that one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble.
It's hard to pick out. It's right in the city.
Yeah, it was. And this was in X-Plane 11, where fields are notoriously hard to spot sometimes. Anyway. All right, very good. So while we're focusing on Dallas, let's get into the kind of the meat of the discussion here and talk about the primary arrival procedures. And again, I kind of feel like it makes the most sense to structure these programs where we're starting by talking about the arrivals. And if you're thinking about flying into a field and then being there and then departing again, so let's kind of structure the field the same way. Where we are focusing on the arrival procedures first, and then the approaches, and then we'll talk about ground operations, and then we will focus on the departures. So kind of keep that logical flow into and then out of again these fields. So let's start with Dallas and talk about the primary arrival procedures that we're going to be using on Friday, and which ones tend to be problematic and tend to be issues for pilots that you've seen.
Looking at Dallas Love, it's pretty simple. Most of the arrivals are all going to just put you off on a heading. And we run visual approaches into Love. With those, it's going to be pretty low and pretty in tight.
Is there
arrivals.
a specific one that's helpful to look at?
They're all flow dependent, but if you pull something like the Jaeger arrival or the Jeffrey, you can look at one of those.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
And those, it puts you on a heading kind of towards the east side of the Tracon area, and then they'll all be vectored around, and all the arrivals come over top of Love on almost like a 45-degree, turning to a 90-degree intercept onto the final.
Gotcha.
Kind of close in, like 3 miles, 4 miles from the center line for the DFW arrivals.
Gotcha. And so the Jeffrey is an RNAV arrival with a profile, so it is going to be like a descend via, right?
Yeah, all the turbojet arrivals into Love will be descend via, and then the piston arrivals, all the non-turbojet stuff is crossing restrictions.
Right, turbojet only. And then so when you're talking about flow dependent, right? So if you file the Jeffrey 4 and the flow is going to be the opposite way, then the chart does tell you which one you're supposed to be on instead. What trips pilots up, I think, is sometimes when the flow changes midstream, and I think that you did mention earlier that there's a possibility that the flow is going to change midstream. So you file one and it's current and correct at the right time, and then you get rerouted to the other one. So talk us through how that clearance, how that reroute is going to sound in the air when that happens.
Yeah, with the reroutes for all these flow-dependent arrivals into both DFW and Love, almost all the fixes are going to be the exact same. So if you haven't gotten to the start of the arrival, it will be the same transition, and you'll just join the arrival at that point. And then if you're already on to a point where, say, you're on that Jeffrey arrival and you're already on the arrival, you'll get a direct to fix something like Orville or Greg's, something that's on the arrival, and rejoin it there.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So it is a lot of the same name. It's the same named points, but also like the same descent altitudes for the most part.
For the Love arrivals, it's going to be most of the same altitudes. For the DFWs, they can vary quite a bit, because if you're on one of something like the Seaver coming from the northeast, it gets you down to 6,000 by the time you get to the Tracon if we're in South Flow, but you'll be up at 20,000 feet if you're landing north flow on that, and you're on the opposite arrival.
Gotcha. So, all right, yeah, and what we have said in panels past was a lot of times there are pilots that are flying with and we always kind of pick on fly-by-wire, which I don't mean to, because it's a great project, but it's one that the flight management computer doesn't 100% respond the way it's supposed to sometimes, especially when you're doing these on-the-fly reroutes. And that's one thing that I think is a big learning curve for pilots that are used to flying in a single pilot environment, used to flying offline, by themselves or with AIATC, and then they're making the leap into flying onto VATSIM. And on VATSIM, because there's all these other pilots around you and there's realistic air traffic control going on, there's the possibility for reroutes and vectors and things that are different than what you programmed into your FMC. So what we've always told pilots and recommended is, if you are rerouted in the middle of your route and your FMC is not behaving the way you think it should, that the number one thing you as a pilot can do is don't just accept the reroute that you're not going to be able to do. Just say approach or center. Unable that for workload. Can you provide me a vector? All right, moving on. Let's talk about. So we got the flow dependent stars into Dallas in both Love and DFW, but we have the same kind of thing going into Houston as well, yes?
Yeah, the same kind of thing. And this is going to take me a minute to get through, because there's a couple of things to talk about at Houston, but I will try and be succinct.
No worries.
So what I had prepped was the Driller 5 as an example. So as you said, like Phoenix, we do have flow dependent stars. We do give pilots the courtesy of telling them sort of the opposite direction star if that's something that they're going to need. So there'll be a note on saying, this star is for if we're landing west. If we're landing east, you'll need, this star. In the case of the Driller, it'll say you'll need the Gusher if we're landing east. So that's something to look out for. At the very least, if you get a flow change, you should sort of have some kind of reference as to what to be expecting. That's maybe something to consider as a brief item if you're expecting a flow change. But
Gotcha.
At the very least, right, you'll be given a different star if the flow changes. So don't worry about it too much. The more interesting thing, I think, is the way the transitions work, particularly in the case of the driller.
Okay.
You'll notice that what it essentially does is splits in three. So you have a transition for 2/6 left, a transition for 2/6 right, and a transition for 2/7. And there's a note on the star that will tell you which transition to fly. In the case of the driller, it's the runway 2/6 left transition. So there's a note on there. It says fly the runway 2/6 left
2/6
transition.
right.
Which is
It's
right.
the
Yeah.
2/6 right. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 2/6 right transition. Yeah, sorry, I knew what I meant. 2/6 right transition. The important thing to know is that applies even if you're told to expect a different runway. So if you're told to expect runway 27, we would still ask you to fly the runway 26 right transition in this case.
Wow.
And that can raise some issues, right? Particularly if you're flying in modern aircraft with MCDUs and all of this fancy stuff, because if you select runway 27 as your runway, it will give you the runway 27 transition off the start.
Okay.
So how do we work around this? I didn't actually know the answer, so I asked a friend who happens to be a JetBlue pilot.
Okay.
And was formerly an American pilot who flew out of and into IAH quite regularly. What they used to do is this. I think it's really clever, so I'm going to excuse me for getting excited because I love it. They will initialize the secondary flight plan, and essentially, so they'll leave the primary flight plan and select runway 26 right in this case. But then when they check onto Houston approach and they're told expect runway 2/6 left or 2/7 or whatever, if it's different from what they already have, they will put that in the secondary flight plan. And because they know they're going to get vectored because the star ends on a downwind, when they get put onto that heading, they just change from the primary flight plan to the secondary flight plan, and then already have the approach loaded. So it's not necessarily something that especially if you're not so confident with your automation and your software that I would expect VATSIM pilots to do.
And I'm not even 100% certain that many of the add-ons handle that properly either.
Right. I know the FS Labs do.
Polis and Flight Factor should handle it quite well, but everything else might be hit or miss.
If nothing else, you can default to just putting in the correct course for the ILS for the runway that you're expecting, since they've all got ILSs, right? But it's these little tips and tricks. The important thing I want to get across is make sure you stay on the correct transition, and make sure that the runway that you have is what you're told to expect, because they're not always going to be the same thing. It's interesting. It's one of those sort of nice little niches that makes Houston quite a challenging airport to fly into.
Sounds like it.
Makes it really fun.
Yeah, sounds like it. The other possible way that you could do that maybe is to select the approach for the runway that you're assigned, but then you go back in and just manually delete out these extraneous points and type this one back in. Now I don't know like if that's, I don't know how, like I know there's a certain amount of like manual entry that you're not supposed to do in the real world. Obviously in the simulator world those restrictions don't exist, and you can kind of make it do whatever you want it to do, however you want to do it. So but that might be another go ahead.
Per se, from a Slant Alpha perspective, you could tune the ILS frequency.
Yeah,
and
right.
Keep your RNet, your GNSS stuff separately.
Right, fair point.
I think either of those would work. Yeah. Just so long as we're not sort of not falling into the trap of just sort of changing the runway blindly without thinking about it in the primary flight plan, and then sort of wondering why we're not following the correct transition here.
Yeah, that is an interesting one that I have. That it's good that you bring it up, because it's something that I have not seen before. Well, I've seen it at Atlanta, where there's a specific arrival that kind of dumps off onto the southern runway, I think, and then you can kind of expect any runway from there, depending on their runway workload dividing. But at that point, you're pretty much already on the down, or the base vector. Really, it's like a left base coming from the south onto the westbound runways, and then you can just keep that heading until whatever approach you need. But this is an interesting one where you might get this early enough that you still need to follow all the points along this transition route, and then still follow a different transition for the runway that you're assigned to. So that's a really interesting case.
And another thing to point out with how the ILS isn't just approaches into bush itself. Some pilots might be used to getting a turn to final that will put them within the 10-mile ring to the field. Unfortunately, at Bush, with how our approaches are laid out and how our finals boxes are laid out, we physically cannot do that. So expect no less than a 10-mile final
Gotcha.
by the time you're established.
Gotcha. That can be a good thing,
no
though,
less
because
than.
right, yeah, because that can be a good thing, though, because it gives them a little bit more time to kind of prepare and set up. So
Yeah.
very good. All right. Yeah, that's quite an interesting one. Any other kind of intricacies that we want to discuss coming into Houston?
We could talk about the sort of the cheat way to check whether your transition is correct.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Which is to say, you will only ever be assigned by air traffic a transition that takes you over the field. The easiest way to tell if you've sort of visually tell if your transition isn't the one that we would sort of maybe expect you to fly is if it's going to cross you from the north side of the field to the south side of the field, or the south side of the field to the north side of the field. If you come in from the south, your downwind will stay on the south, right?
Gotcha. No, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And
go ahead, Mike.
And another point is, if say we do end up running east, so for Phoenix and our Dallas arrivals, they can basically expect an add X, you're cleared X once they get into the I-90 as well.
Oh, okay. So you have, and like we've talked about some in some panels before, so you have certain stars that terminate in the initial fixes for the approaches.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of that handy that I can pull up real quick?
Look up the H-Town 2 arrival. It comes in from the southwest. So if you it's labeled differently on the FAA plate, but I know on the Jefferson plate at Widelands, it specifically tells you to expect either the ILS or the localizer for H-Ride. So to kind of help pilots keep on top of their planning, look at the charts, because a majority of them will tell you which not only runway you can expect, but what approach you should expect as well.
Gotcha. This is another one where you also need to select that transition from Widelands so that you're instead of following the direct path to the initial fix, it's actually following the chartered path here, which goes up to Pollen and then in.
Yeah.
All right, very
Woodlands,
good.
by the way.
Oh, Woodlands, not Widelands. Okay, very good, very good.
Yeah.
We always have that that debate. Like, there's at least one point that no one knows how you're supposed to pronounce.
I grew up north of Houston. There's a town called the Woodlands. So
gotcha. Makes total sense. Gotcha. Heaven forbid we don't know all the sports players that used to play for all the Houston teams.
You should know every single fix. You should know how to pronounce every fix in the National Airspace System properly the way it was intended.
Very good. Let's jump back out to Phoenix and touch on any specific arrival issues that you guys see into Phoenix.
Phoenix. All right. From Dallas, from the D10 area, you're going to expect the Eagle 6 arrival, which is going to be coming in from the north, either Gallup or Zuni, most likely Zuni, which is Zulu Uniform November.
Gotcha. And just bear with me as Gonna catch up for 1 second. KPHX.
That is if you're RNAV capable. If you're not RNAV capable, the Eagle 6, I would say, Evil Twin is the Jesse 3 arrival. Your RNAV arrivals.
It won't be the Jesse. It would be the
Jesse.
It'd be the Bunter.
It can also be the Bunter. I like the Jesse though.
I think the Jesse's turboprop only now.
Is the Jesse turboprop and an ATC assigned turbojet aircraft?
Same.
Oh, look at that! Look at that! Turboprop and ATC.
Bunter's turbojet only.
Gotcha.
So they're all turbo arrivals no matter what. So either the Jesse or the Bunter. Excuse me. Allie's been doing this a lot longer than I have.
15 years.
Mm-hmm. Half your life.
Update yourself now.
So just going back to the Eagle. So you'll get a descend via. Make sure you're hitting those restrictions. And from on the second page of the Eagle, you'll start seeing what happens when you get closer to the field.
Gotcha.
We went over this last time, but our stars are not runway dependent. So you can be on the Eagle 6 no matter if we're in east flow or west flow. If it's like escape the cold, we're going to be in east flow, which was great for our Salt Lake arrivals, but not for our Minneapolis arrivals. Our base, you're going to need to depart O base on the 258 heading, unless you're vectored otherwise.
Yeah,
that thick black line,
lost comms.
Yes,
Yeah, that's that you can ignore. This is definitely the one you want to be on.
Thick black lines, or you need to do this. Dotted black lines or lost comms, and
yeah, you can pretty much on VATSIM you can ignore any lost comms procedures for the most part, at least for during a Friday Night Ops event. And this is one that one kind of little lecture that we give, and we have given in each of these, but I'll go ahead and say it again, which is that there's a tendency among pilots again, and again, it's these learning curves that that pilots that are coming into VATSIM from where they've learned how to fly on their own, not on a multiplayer network. A lot of the tutorials that come with the aircraft that have these complex flight management computers, they aren't really built for, hey, here's how you do it on the VATSIM network. It's just enough to get you up and running in the aircraft. And so what a lot of those tutorials omit is the fact that when you finish the star, there's this tendency to want to just automatically connect the last point on the star with the first point on the approach and then go in. And if you're flying on offline, you're flying that by yourself, there's no reason you can't or shouldn't do that. But when you're flying in a network where there's other traffic and there's controllers that are trying to manage that traffic, it's exactly the wrong thing to do, because it's going to cut you in front of the aircraft that are down here that are being turned onto final in sequence. So it is really, really crucial that you maintain that 258 after O-base. And what I say is that for the most part, and how it works in your flight management computer is often dependent upon the exact type of aircraft that you're flying. It's a little bit different. I'm more familiar personally with the Boeing style FMCs, and then the Proline system that's in the Working Title CJ4. But there's the flight management computer is going to put what they call a discontinuity in. And discontinuity is seen in many of these tutorials as something that needs to be fixed, where in reality, all it's doing is it's telling you that the line doesn't connect. And the reason for that is the end of the star literally is not supposed to connect with the beginning of the approach. The controller is supposed to give you the path that you're going to take to connect those two. It's not something you can just program in before you even take off and expect that that's exactly what you're going to fly. So you do have to wait to be told to turn after O-base, and the best way to do that is just leave that discontinuity in there. It's not going to blow up the plane when it hits it. It's just going to give you a warning to let you know that the routes don't connect. And at that point, you should, whenever you see, I'll tell you what, if I can go back to the text description of the path here, where is it?
Yeah, you're going to see 7 left, 7 right, 8. You're going to see it say expect radar vectors.
Yep, exactly.
Expect radar vectors. And that's okay. That's normal.
If I can find the right...
it's page 3.
It's page 3.
Because our stars are just so long. Or continuation 2.
Yeah, continuation 2. So yeah, pretty much... landing
After
25s there, you're going to have the expect RNAV or radar vectors, but here on all the eastbound ones,
that one,
expect radar vectors.
Expect radar vectors.
Final.
And
so pretty much whenever you see expect radar vectors in a SID or a star situation, that should be a pretty big red flag that if there's a discontinuity in your route, you should probably leave it there.
Yeah, deleting the discontinuity is not always the right move. Remember to read your charts. Charts are free.
Yep, there you go.
And if you're in Garmin avionics, it's going to say MANSEC, manual sequence.
MANSEC, manual sequence. Okay, there you go.
So that's okay. It'll spit you out on the right heading. But change to heading mode. Don't always stay in magenta lines. So
yeah, and that's the other thing that I have said is like if you know for certain that you're going to remember to put it into heading mode before you cross that fix, it might be okay to delete the discontinuity. But it's such a busy phase of flight that no matter what you think, and especially when you're in a Friday night ops event and there's 30 planes on the channel and you're trying to configure for landing, you're trying to manage your speed and everything else that you're trying to do with the aircraft and start getting the lights on and all that stuff, you're not going to be paying attention to the point that you're crossing. And, when you get across that point, O-base, and you're not going to remember to put it into the heading mode. So just do yourself the favor, set yourself up for success from the beginning and just leave that discontinuity in there so that you'll have that warning pop up on the FMC that you're now on that manual vectors portion of the star.
To contrast that, if we're westbound, which God hopes,
yeah, but it's exactly
Gypsy.
Yeah, the same thing we were just saying in Houston. It's at such and such cleared such and such approach.
So Jagel and Gypsy are not intermediate fixes, nor are they initial approach fixes for the ILS or RNAV. 26 or 25 left.
Right,
but
I remember this conversation too.
They are because it's a charted procedure 1, and 2 because it's a less than 30-degree intercept. At least at Jagel.
Which one do I want to pull up here?
That one's fine.
But I mean, which approach?
Go ILS 26.
That's what I was thinking. Oops.
So you'll see Jagel's not an initial approach fix or an IF, but it's a fix between the IF and FAF. So we can clear you at Jagel because it's charted. So you can expect Jagel at 4,000 for the approach. So you might just hear at Jagel cleared ILS 26 approach. That means fly the approach all the way to Jagel, then join the ILS.
Gotcha. And at that point, then you can delete discontinuities to your heart's content.
Yes.
Connect where it says Jagel to where it says Jagel. Yes, exactly. Very good.
And it's the exact same with the ping 1 and that's the RNAV arrival. It's the Sun's 8 from the south on the non-RNAV.
Gotcha.
And that one is turboprop only landing Phoenix Sky Harbor.
Since we are talking approaches, do you want to kind of just segue that straight into issues with the approaches? I know you didn't really have a whole lot of notes.
Make sure that I guess the main one is just don't go to Sirun if you're cleared at Jagel. There's no reason to go all the way back to the IAF. Just join the localizer and get down on the approach.
Gotcha. Get it into approach mode. Just get on there instead of the plane's going to want to turn back and pick it up from the beginning.
It's Phoenix in February. It's most likely going to be VMC. You're most likely going to say, here's the plane in front of you, follow that plane, your number 2 cleared approach.
Gotcha. Well, which actually brings up another point, though.
The field's 40 miles out, cleared approach.
Right.
Like it's Phoenix. Right. It's Phoenix.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's Phoenix in February. We're almost certainly VMC. And visual approaches, we love them and we like to use them. But just know that as a pilot, even though you're told to expect the visual approach, you might get told to intercept the localizer, and that's okay. You should do that.
Exactly what I was going to segue into. You beat me
always to it. Best practice to back up your visual approach with an RNAV, an ILS, or any other precision approach.
Yeah.
If it puts you in line with the runway, use something to reference. They do it in the real world. It is 100% worth it because as soon as you lose sight of that runway, you have something to fall back on.
Yep, and if you've got that nice dotted line on the nav display that you can join instead of joining the localizer visually, you can get away with line to the controller. Yep, got the runway in sight.
Well, I don't endorse V6 violations.
I'm teasing a little. I'm sort of a little bit teasing. But yeah, no, certainly, certainly there's opportunity to be told to join the localizer before you report the field in sight. Matter of fact, a lot of times a controller will use that as a fallback. If you say you don't have the airport in sight yet, or I'm looking for the field. Okay, well in the meantime, join the localizer.
And because we have a finals controller on, so it might be join the localizer, talk to finals, and they'll get you the rest of the way if you don't have the field yet. So it helps us with handing off to the adjacent controller sector.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, same note in Houston as well.
Right. Yep. We're gonna
the other thing I will say,
go ahead.
All of our SIDs going into satellite fields, which you are more than welcome to fly into. We got a ton of them in the P50. If you look up the desert in the Scottsdale,
which one is that? Was that the one that's way up here?
KSDL. No. Go down. Just northeast of Phoenix.
Oh, just northeast of Phoenix.
Yeah, it's like in the metro area.
Yeah, it's right in that weird.
What was I thinking of then?
Keep scrolling then.
I think you're thinking of Sedona, Rob.
Sedona, Scottsdale. It starts with an S. I had it.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
Arrival Desert.
There we go.
Desert 2, yeah. It's an RNAV arrival that doesn't have a descent via. So if you're going to fly into Scottsdale, this typically isn't from Dallas or Houston, but I'm just using it as an example.
Sure.
You're most likely going to get pulled off the arrival for these and vectored in for one of the approaches that they have. More than welcome to fly any of the arrivals into the satellite fields.
So in that case, instead of like a descend, you can't give a descend via the Desert 2. There's no altitudes on it, so you would just get either descend across such and such and such and such altitude, or more than likely, you probably just get a regular straight up climb and descend and maintain.
Yeah,
you probably get shock at 1-2000.
Okay.
Let's be Allie's done this way longer than
I guess it depends on who's controlling.
I sit there and I spend 20 minutes like typing it out, calculating the IFR descents, and be like, all right, desert at 13,763.
Oh, okay. Unable. I'm going to be 5 feet high.
Yeah, 5 feet high. But yeah, if it's not a descent via, you're not going to give a descent via, obviously, but be prepared to cross any of these fixes at a certain altitude, depending on the controller. And you might get cross desert at the ceiling for my next controller, and then they might immediately give you a subsequent crossing restriction. So
okay. Gotcha. So you kind of stepped down through the sectors, if you will.
Be prepared to change your FMC.
Gotcha.
And I'll kind of reiterate that for Fort Worth and Houston. Be ready to reprogram your FMC. Know how to do it when you're in the air, and be ready to do it, because flows change. Everything changes. So
again, that is definitely one of the biggest learning curves coming in to VATSIM from a single pilot environment, is that the route that you put into the FMC is very much like the agenda for this program. It may or may not be the route that we end up flying on this thing.
Or another example, and we can use the Desert 2 into Scottsdale that's up, is per se being given, hey, after this, direct this fix to resume the arrival, basically. Keeping you on the arrivals, but giving you a shortcut so you don't need to fly the entire thing, and plus to possibly make our lives a bit easier.
Gotcha,
or after desert proceed direct swirl, or Hawaii, which is on the RNAV RNP runway 21 into Scottsdale.
Oh, okay. So it wouldn't even be on this chart; it would be on the approach.
Right? No, you'll have no idea what I'm talking about until I tell you what approach it's on.
Right.
Or
gotcha.
And honestly, it is so much easier for us for your pilots. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, say unable and ask for a vector, or ask me to repeat it, because I would rather you say you don't know, which is a totally acceptable answer, than tell me, okay, we'll go, and then don't do it.
Brings us back to a point that we've touched upon on previous panels, but I'll go ahead and make it again. I think there's there's an anxiety that pilots have about if they've given something that they're not quite sure they're able to accept, there's a tendency to want to, well, I don't want to upset them, or I don't want to upset the flow. I'm going to tell them I can do it, and then I'll figure it out. But the additional workload that you create for a controller by, refusing a clearance that you're not sure what it is, and instead getting a vector and an altitude, is minimal. It's probably 1 or 2 more turns and 1 or 2 more step down altitudes.
Or I might be clearing that just too soon for you. So it might be hang on 1 second, let me open that chart.
Right.
But
requesting a vector, it's 1 or 2, maybe 3 additional instructions. Whereas
absolutely
accepting the clearance and saying, okay, I got it, and then not getting it correctly, that's then 5 or 6 additional instructions, not only to you, but to the aircraft behind you that you just caused the separation issue with, and to the aircraft in front of you that you just caused the separation issue with. And then it's trying to figure out where to get you back in the line once they get everything sorted out. So the additional workload of unable, can I get a vector, is minimal, and that should be, if you're, especially if you're newer and you're not as confident with the programming of the FMC while you're flying a plane, which after all we're doing as one person, in an aircraft that's ordinarily crewed by 2 and sometimes 3. So, there's really no shame in saying, can I get a vector, and can I get a
perfectly acceptable answer.
And like Rob has said, like the amount of effort it takes me to give you a vector, because I've been doing this for long enough that I already know what the general heading is for most of these approaches, and so I could just give you that heading off the top of my head.
Exactly. All they're going to do is they're going to put you on this heading. It's right there on the chart, so...
Yeah. It's like, it's so low effort for me that just saying, hey, I can't, I don't know, I can't. I'm just going to issue you a heading and move on.
Yeah, exactly. So as a pilot, requesting a vector instead of the path, if you're not sure what the path is, go with the vector as your backup plan, because it's so much easier for the controller than accepting something and then messing it up.
Yeah, but expect that you're going to get a vector, and I still expect you to go look up the approach plate, right? If I tell you to expect the RNAV RNP21, go look it up.
Yep.
Even though I might be staring at it, I have no expectation that you're directly looking at it. So
right, exactly.
Yeah, and you know how the NAS is with fixes. You got Hawaii on the RNAV RNP21 into Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah,
exactly. You know how to spell that without me telling you.
Hold on, I'm clear direct to what state? Yeah.
Direct Hawaii and LTCOL, which I can only interpret as Lieutenant Colonel.
That would be my guess, but who knows?
Right.
If you said in the middle of middle of my descent, and I'm trying to program 10 things, and
exactly,
and interact with my chat, and you said cleared to Lieutenant Colonel, I'm like, what?
Yeah. So and we try to make it easy on you. So like when we start giving you a descent, we'll tell you what to expect, hopefully, but things change, or flows change, or
indeed
someone doesn't cancel IFR. So we have to tell you to hold somewhere. So
gotcha.
I'd also like to point out YOLO is on the desert, and that's hilarious.
It is.
But at least as it relates to the arrivals, I know on a majority of the Houston RNAV plates this is stated. I'm not sure about the D10.
Well, Michael, since we're about to kind of branch into Houston, let's go ahead and pull one up.
Oh, okay. Let me see.
And if you're going into Casa Grande, you can go direct to Wienor.
It's true, and you should absolutely request it.
You should. Everyone should fly into Casa Grande, and everyone should go direct to Wienor.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Michael. You were about to make a point. What can I bring up to illustrate
it? It's not per se mentioned on any direct Houston plates that I can find, but just the general note of your plates will tell you who or which controller you can expect a transition assignment from.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Android or
indeed. So in some cases, you're going to get descend via the such and such arrival, airport
Yeah.
landing north, airport landing south, or whatever. In some cases, the center controller gives you that. In other cases, the approach controller gives you that.
Yeah. Yeah. Austin's a perfect example now that I actually think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pull up the Willie 6 arrival into Austin.
Okay.
I can't keep a straight face. It's called the Willie 6.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, you Brits.
I'm so sorry.
But wait, you didn't laugh at Wiener as
It's
an
for
as
Willie
an-
Nelson. It's got weed on it
I
and
know,
manure and
It's
Biter.
just-
I hardly know her.
It's
And-
just a funny plate.
And everything on the north side is Star Wars with
on
Luke and
the
X-wing.
first page. Yeah. So if you notice the note that's there that says expect runway assignment
Gotcha.
from Austin, which luckily at Austin that also tells you which flow you're running as well.
There really are some good point names on this one.
It's a very good one.
Mm.
Yes.
All right, never mind. we can get real juvenile real quick on this plate.
We
I
got
think.
the ZFW datum fix on there. We got music.
There you go. That's right. Martin's got his point right here.
Wait, I never noticed that.
All right.
Or actually, no. Houston has two musics then, because we have that one. Then the one on the, I believe it's either the Indy or the Lurk out of Houston. So.
All right. If I may steer us back, I know that you all were talking to me before we went live about the close parallels that we're going to be running into Houston. So tell me about those and what I can pull up to help illustrate.
I'll jump on this if you like.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So to be honest, the most helpful plate you could probably pull up is just the airport diagram.
Sure.
Because it's going to illustrate the point sort of better than any individual approach plate will. But you will notice, particularly I say particularly, the runways are far enough apart that we can run independent approaches. But you'll notice that they are still within sort of a relative proximity to each other, right? And particularly with the way that the arrivals work, with some of the stars, as we've talked about, going, from X point cleared, whichever approach onto which runway, and some of our arrivals coming onto a downwind, it's very, very common to get a mix of instrument and visual approaches.
Oh, wow.
Because, for workload reasons, your guys coming straight onto the approach, you're not going to assign a visual to, because it's easier to just clear them for the approach off the start, right? Because that's sort of what they get. But conversely, your guys on the downwinds, it's workload easier to get a visual approach.
Right.
So this can introduce some sort of some hazards. And one of the big ones is you'll get a lot of traffic point outs if you're joining a visual approach and it's very, very busy. You can imagine 3 runways, some guys on instrument approaches, some guys on visual approaches. If you're joining, 26 left, for instance, which is the middle runway, which never fails to confuse people, you'll be getting point outs, or you're getting traffic advisories against guys landing 27. You're getting traffic advisories against other guys landing 26 left. Traffic advisories against guys landing 26 right, and that can be a very busy environment to operate in.
Gotcha.
My advice for pilots operating in that environment is to kind of do your best to just build a mental picture of sort of where you are relative to that traffic and which traffic sort of really matters. And that can be really difficult, right?
That is, especially for newer pilots to kind of have that. That's almost like something that comes with experience almost.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we will do our best to help you with that, right? One of the things that I love to do, I'm not working the I-90 for the event, but it's one of the things that I teach when I'm training people on the I-90 is, hey, if you're running multiple runways here and you're giving a lot of traffic information, give them okay, so this guy's on the same runway as you. This is somebody you need to be aware of. This guy's landing a different way. So, for instance, American 321 traffic, 1 o'clock, 4.5 miles at 4,000 is an American A320 landing runway 27, right? If you're landing runway 26 left, straight away, okay, keep an eye out for him, but he's not somebody I need to worry about, it's sort of running up the back of necessarily,
right?
Because he's landing on a different runway from me. So yeah, expect the finals to be busy, particularly if we're busy. But the point I want to get across is that the controllers will be doing their best to help you and to point out sort of the traffic that's relevant and make it clear sort of where you fit into that big picture, if that makes sense, and to sort of try and cut through as much of that as they can to make it manageable, because we recognize that it's a lot, and we want to make it as easy for the pilots
as
to build
non-overwhelming.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. And at least on the front of traffic advisories, if you're landing 27 or departing the 15s, don't be surprised if you're given traffic that's operating on the other runway because of how the missed approaches and just the climates are situated.
Yeah, so if you're landing 27, you need to know about traffic that's here. It's not probably the most important thing, but as soon as someone starts to go around, then suddenly really is important.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. Okay, and we have kind of similar situations going on up in Dallas-Fort Worth. You guys want to walk me through that? Which one of you is walking me through that? Martyn?
Mac, which arrival do you want to talk about?
Mac was having some connection issues. He's in the room now, but I'm not sure whether he's
he keeps tabbing out.
Oh,
we can pull up the Seaver and kind of start with that.
Is that DFW?
Yeah, that's for DFW.
Yeah, DFW, the Seaver arrival.
Gotcha. Okay, go ahead. There it is.
So the Seaver, this is what the downwind arrivals look like going into DFW. They descend via, and they bottom altitude's 11, and it puts you on a downwind heading. And then you'll be vectored by the feeder controller or over to the final controller for your runway assignment. And then even from there, all three of the finals are at 5, 6, and 7,000 feet. They're stacked. So you actually have vertical separation at DFW until you're established on the final, which keeps the airplanes separated that way at DFW.
Gotcha. So this is when you're landing. Hold on a second. You're landing in a south flow. Gotcha. Oops.
Yeah, the south flow, that Seaver, I guess south flow Seaver is the base arrival. And you'll get vectored onto the final. And then each final is at 5, 6, or 7,000 feet.
Gotcha.
Which
okay,
keeps
so
all the arrivals separated. And then once you get established on the final, is when the descent will start. And DFW, the finals, especially for running triple simultaneous approaches, you'll have to be established 20, 25 miles out from the runway.
Right. Gotcha. And that's another one that's very important to when you're given that descent via that you're cautious to look at the lowest published altitude on the arrival. There's a tendency, I think, for pilots to want to descend through that altitude. But because of what you just said, because of the way you're stacking up the approaches, the simultaneous parallels, it's crucial that you not go down below 6 until you're told to. So anytime you're given a descend via, what you want to do is kind of just glance at the very bottom end of that chart. What is the lowest altitude that is published on that chart? Okay, that's what I'm cleared down to right now. And that's what you want to set that mode control panel to, and not lower than that. Even if the approach that you've been told to expect is lower, but you haven't been cleared for it yet until you've been specifically told to by the controller. So the descend via doesn't give you the altitudes on the approach. It gives you the altitudes on the arrival only.
Yeah, then if you look at the Berry 1 arrival, that's the downwind for the southeast corner. That downwind arrival gets you descending to 11, which again, like you said, that bottom altitude, you really watch out because the DFW departures are climbing to 10 Love arrivals are descending to 9, and Love departures are climbing to 8, all in pretty much the same 10-15 mile chunk of airspace.
Gotcha.
So it's very important that you stop at the correct bottom altitude and also climb to the proper top altitude of the departure.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we'll look at that in more detail on the departures in a little bit. But yeah, it's not a coincidence that those are 1,000 foot separated. So
I think Martyn was going to talk about some of the Love arrivals because those work a little bit differently.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I'll talk about the Love arrivals. The two that I mainly want to talk about is the Jeffrey and the Redden. It's the Jeffrey 4 and the Redden 4.
Okay. Whoops, I passed it. I don't know my alphabet today. Sorry about that, guys. Jeffrey and Redden. Okay.
These are probably the two most common ones you're going to see coming out of Houston and the Phoenix, Albuquerque areas. We'll start with the Redden. So what's going to happen is the Redden, you'll be given a descent via. So you'll be crossing Orville at 9,250 knots. And then what that's going to do in south flow configuration, that's going to put you on a left downwind for both of the runways. Since we're only going to be using the one runway, 13 left, you'll be put either onto a visual approach or, depending on the workflow, you may be put on a RNAV approach into 13 left. And I believe we have an approach section later, Rob, that I'll specifically talk about the approaches that'll actually bring you in to the runway specifically.
Okay, yeah, we do, but go ahead.
Yeah, so with this, I mean, it's just your normal arrival, kind of like what Albuquerque and Houston was talking about. Don't delete your discontinuities, because after Bacher, you're going to be on a 315 heading until you get further instructions.
Gotcha. Yep. Very good. All right. Do we want to go ahead?
At least a note coming from Houston going to Dallas. If you notice there happens the top altitude for that fixes a flight level 300, kind of just as a nice thing between the facilities. We do tend to cap any Houston to Dallas traffic no higher than 300 to kind of accommodate and already work with the arrivals going into the D10.
Gotcha.
Terminal.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So if you file something higher, you're probably going to, in your clearance, expect to hear that your cruise altitude's been amended to flight level 300.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Do we want to, Martyn, did you want to go ahead and segue right into that approach conversation? I think we're kind of ready to move on to that topic anyway. So.
Sure. I'll talk about actually the approach that you're going to get more than likely off of Redden, which will be the RNAV whiskey, RNAV RNP whiskey for 13 left.
Okay. Oh, so this is a fun radius to fix approaches.
Yes, it's one of the, I believe, fun approaches into coming into Love, because normally what you'll hear is you'll get descended after Orville. You'll be talking a regional approach, or at Orville you'll be talking a regional approach, and you'll get a descend and maintain whatever 4,000, 5,000, and then you may be given a direct knock me, and then it'll sound something like clear direct knock me, cross knock me at 4,000, cleared RNAV whiskey runway 13 left approach, and at that point, whatever altitude you're at, you're restricted to cross knock me at 4,000 and below 230 knots. And that'll get you from your left downwind to your left base onto your final for runway 13 left.
Gotcha.
One thing I do want to touch is coming from the north side. If you're coming southbound, you might get direct wind up. And it's going to be the same thing. Clear direct wind up, cross wind up at 3,000, cleared RNAV whiskey 13 left approach. And once you're cleared for this approach, and once you're on the approach, it is imperative that you abide by the speed and altitude restrictions.
Yeah.
Because I believe it was Evan that was talking about going into Addison. In the real world, the Addison arrivals and the Love arrivals are separated roughly about 1,000 feet. And the departures kind of work a little different, but the arrivals wise are separated about 1,000 feet. So it's imperative that you follow the altitude restrictions. And then depending on how close we're trying to get arrivals, it's imperative that you also follow the speed restrictions as well.
Yeah, and I found that speed management in the bigger airplanes, it's like it's 230 is the max, but if you could cheat it down without without the arrival behind you running up on you, then it's not a bad thing to do, because the speed management becomes probably one of the most critical things. This path is a lot shorter than you realize until you're suddenly flying it and you realize, oh geez, I'm right on top of the runway already. So
Yeah.
Albuquerque has entered the chat.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Honestly.
Yes.
Let's not even talk
indeed.
about Albuquerque.
Yep. It's like a power off 180 basically. All right. Gotcha. Can we move into, we've covered most of the stuff with approaches, guys. Anything big with approaches that we didn't cover? I mean, and we were kind of running a little bit short on time, so if there's any real critical ones on approaches, but I think we've covered some of the main kind of real tricky stuff into these facilities for now. So if we missed anything, then maybe we'll just come back to them the next time your field's featured. But let's move on real quickly to ground operations, and which of Dallas and of Love and Dallas Fort Worth, which one do we want to look at first? Actually, let's look at Love first, if that's okay, guys, since I already have it right up in front of me here. Whoops.
Yeah, that's fine.
I had it and then I lost it. But yeah, let's talk about the main features of Love. And I noticed a lot of this like actually marked non-movement area, which we don't see on a lot of airport diagrams, but we sure see it on this one. Explain what all those markings mean about the non-movement area.
Yeah, so as we can see, a majority of Dallas Love, the ramps are actually non-movement areas, which means as a controller, we're still concerned about the non-movement areas, but we won't give you instructions
Right.
to operate within the movement area or non-movement area, excuse me. Basically, what our main concern is as a ground controller would be those movement areas such as the taxiways, and tower, obviously the runways. But the operations that are happening within the non-movement areas, we're not that concerned about. Obviously, we still keep an eye on it. But that's where you can, push back and start. It's a common thing for pilots to call for push and start. I know
right.
at Love and DFW, both airports you can push and start without having to call, as
Right.
long as you do not push back onto an active taxiway.
Gotcha. And that's kind of like the default. We kind of say, like, if you're not sure, then kind of the default arrangement is that if it's got a letter, it's probably a taxiway and you need to call if you're pushing onto it. And if you're pushing onto something that doesn't have a letter, it's probably not a taxiway and you probably don't need to call to push and start. That's, there's a lot of exceptions. There's a lot of airports that have kind of these ramp areas where they have what they refer to as taxi lanes or whatnot. But just as a general rule, if you're unfamiliar, a good assumption is usually that if you're pushing onto something that doesn't have a designated letter name, you're probably okay to do that. The nice thing about this chart is, like I said, it's got all these little hashed out areas that specifically designate these as non-movement areas. And for those who don't know, it almost sounds like you're not allowed to move in a non-movement area. It's actually like almost the exact opposite. It's like you can move as much as you want in the non-movement area within reasonable limits, of course. But it's just the area that the ground controller doesn't, the FAA ground controller doesn't have responsibility over. And in the real world, you might be talking to a ramp controller that is employed by the airport authority or by the airline, or in some of these ramp areas, you're talking to the FBO instead of an FAA ground controller. But in VATSIM, it's just like, okay, well, ground doesn't handle that area. That's not ours. So that's all kind of basically pilot's discretion by default.
I will just say on this note, having flown out of Dallas Love before from an FBO, be ready to write down your taxi instructions. Because when you get like, Whiskey Delta 3 Papa Bravo Mike 1 for 3-1 right, like you're not ready to remember that unless you've flown out of that field 30 times.
This is kind of a spaghetti mess in this middle area.
Yeah, here. No, and if you're going to, it's like Techstar or something up there. Be ready to write down your taxi instructions. When you call ready to taxi, just write them down. Yeah. Even if it's, especially, Dallas Love, Dallas Fort Worth, Houston Intercon, even Hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Just be ready to write them down because you're gonna get like whiskey, November Hotel, November.
You're gonna get like 7 shots of whiskey, and you're gonna not be ready for that.
Yeah, you need a lot of whiskey to write down the whiskey instructions.
Yes, indeed. And one thing that we've pointed out before is that the pilot clients, the major pilot clients, X-Pilot and V-Pilot, both have this tab called Notes, and it's a great place to just tab over in the pilot client, just start writing down whatever you want. As a matter of fact, I know we're running just a little bit short on time here, but we'll run. If the discussion runs just a little bit over, hopefully that's not a problem for anybody. But this Notes tab is just basically like I can type whatever here, and well, it's not going to do it because I'm not connected. But the idea is that you can pretty much type to yourself there, and it'll just pop up there as though it's like a private message from you to yourself. It doesn't get sent out over the channel. It doesn't get sent to another pilot. It doesn't get sent to a controller. So that's just
basically your personal like notepad script.
Yeah, exactly. Great place to put your taxi instructions.
Or if Allie's online, just .message and whatever Allie's frequency or call sign is.
Right.
Unable. Just go in there and bug her with all your notes.
Very good.
I'm gonna dot busy if you do that.
Dot busy.
Anybody remember dot busy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Throwback.
All right. We want to look at Dallas Fort Worth as well, and I know that one of you had some great advice as far as the taxiing that you do at Dallas Fort Worth. So let's get that in front of us. It's a huge facility, right? So yeah. So what? There was some great advice that came up about the parking locations and the way you guys taxi for departures going in certain directions. So remind me what I'm talking about there.
The runway assignment at DFW is all departure direction dependent, where eastbound departures will go off the east side of the airport off of 17 right or 35 left, and then the westbound departures go off the west side of the airport off of 18 left or 36 right. So for this event, those Houston departures are most likely going to go off that 17 right, and all those Albuquerque, Phoenix departures go off of the 18 left over there on the west side. The main thing with that is most of the taxiways at DFW are direction dependent. Those inner taxiways, if we're landing south flow, it's that Kilo and Golf. Those are our to the runway taxiways, and then Foxtrot will be more arriving from the runway.
Gotcha.
And then our bridge flows, those outer 2 bridges, the Yankee and the Alpha bridge are eastbound, and the inner bridge, Zulu and Bravo, are westbound.
Gotcha. Yankee, you said is eastbound?
Yeah, the outside Yankee and Alpha and eastbound, and then inner Zulu and Bravo. And then on the south side of the 17 runways, there's an Echo Sierra route. It's the standard taxi route that's utilized. So if you land 17 left, instead of having to exit and go all the way down and hold short and try and cross 2 runways, you just turn left Papa, Echo Sierra, Juliet Sierra, and it loops you around the bottom side of the runways. Say you're landing 17 center, you'll exit left on Papa 2 and go southbound Papa, Echo Sierra, Juliet Sierra, back up to the main terminals.
Gotcha.
Keep going south.
Wait a minute. Did I miss it?
Yeah, keep going south.
Oh, I missed. Yes. I didn't cut it. Cut it. Ah, there it is. I was going to say, I know I've done this before. I know it didn't cut across the bottom of the runway, so I know I'm doing something wrong there. But yeah, Papa 2, Papa.
Navigraph has it published now. There are codified taxi routes at DFW, which we're probably not going to utilize those because they're not as well known, but there are codified published taxi routes for everything.
Okay, so you could give that via taxi via route such and such, and that would mean all of this together, and pilots would need to know the chart in order to just know that that's the sequence that's being referred to. Is that published in the FAA charts anywhere, or is that just on Navigraph?
Not in the FAA that I know of, but Navigraph has it, and they're in the Jeffersons. The way it works in the real world is you don't call for taxi at DFW. You will just pull up to a spot and sit there. They'll call your spot number, and then if you're on 17 right, you might get up in American 1025 or my 17 right taxi via the inner.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a 17 right inner taxi route. It gives you some combination of Kilo, some crossover taxiway that will get you up to one of the 3 hold pads at the 17 right runway.
Gotcha. Very good. Okay.
As someone who's flown into DFW in the real world to try and make a 45-minute connection, when you land 17 left and you have to take that south route around the south runways, it's very stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a nice tour of the downtown area.
What was that, Evan?
especially on a 145.
Mine is on a 7.3, thankfully, but
Oh yeah, mine too. But
Gotcha.
There's
All right.
one more thing to note with the
Yep.
FW is the Echo Foxtrot, Echo Golf, and Echo Hotel. Those three hold shorts. You kind of get familiar with how those all line up. Where all three of those taxiways don't go to all three of the hold shorts. The Julia, Kilo, Lima. They all don't go to the three hold shorts there, and kind of get used to and listen to which one you're assigned. Because if you do end up going to the wrong hold pad, you're going to throw off the sequence, and it's going to make people wait a lot longer to depart since we won't have the separation that's required.
Right. So what you guys do is you use that as a sequencing tool. Like if you got folks that are going all to the same destination, or if you have one that you can jump the line with, get them out quicker by putting them into one of these other ones. I know that I've definitely experienced that before, where I had there was 2 or 3 planes stacked up for Echo Fox and Echo Golf, and they tried to get me to go Echo Hotel, and I was unfamiliar, and I just lined up behind the guys that I saw there, and they were like, "Yeah, 514 Delta Victor, we're trying to get you out of here. You want to go to Echo Hotel?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's what you all told me to do, wasn't it?" Yeah, so easy mistake to make if you're unfamiliar, but good to know. Same thing over, obviously, east FGH, west FGH, and all that stuff. But yeah, obviously the same thing applies over there on the west side. All right, very good. If we can quickly talk about Houston. Houston, I know you said you guys are going to probably have a ramp controller up and running, so everything we said about the ramp being non-movement just doesn't apply at all.
No, it does not. So,
Okay.
not
in this case, at least.
No, not in this case. No. So, first to this in, Rob, I am posting the ramp diagram in the chalkboard for you.
Okay, and of course my FAA site decided not to load all of a sudden, so.
So,
for this.
at least from the. Okay, so at least from the ramp perspective, all we honestly care about is if you're at the terminal or terminals themselves, every other ramp that's dotted around the field, when you're ready for taxi, you will contact ground, versus if you're at the terminal after you get your clearance, you will be instructed when ready for push to contact ramp. And
gotcha.
There are a couple key things that as ramp that your ramp controller will want to know, and that's what gate you're at and what RNAV procedure that you're on, because we will do our best to kind of pre-sequence you out of the ramp on your way to ground to kind of just keep things moving as seamlessly as we can.
Gotcha.
But this is more from the controller's perspective, but the pilots should be aware of this as well. If you look at the intersection of November Kilo and November Bravo spots, 17, 18 Alpha, and 18.
Okay. Yep.
Off of the Delta gates there. So, unlike a lot of our other spots where we're able to use multiple of them at the same time, with those 3, if you're a heavy, or not per se if you're heavy, but if we have a heavy on 18 Alpha, we physically cannot use either 17 or 18 due to wingspan issues. And the same thing goes for spot 3 down on the western side of the ramp as well.
Gotcha. All right, very cool. Yeah, but I think it is kind of an anomaly that that there is, a ramp controller that's going to be on for this event. So that's certainly an important point to point out for VATSIM pilots that are flying for the first time at a big event like this, where there would be a ramp controller on. And so everything that we kind of said at Dallas Love about all the non-movement area is a little bit out the window here, because there is a controller on that is acting as what ordinarily would be, like I said, an airport authority employee or an airline employee or whatever, whichever authority controls the ramp areas here at George Bush. But yeah, a little bit different situation. Go ahead.
And a note for our arrivals is, please, with on your second radio, once you're on the ground and clear of the runway, on your number 2 radio, give ramp a call. So not only to let them know, hey, you're on the ground, but also to get your spot and gate assignment, so you know where we're expecting you to enter by.
Gotcha.
And for those pilots that don't have access to the -9 Bravo on Navigraph or Jeppesen, we do have a pilot briefing on our website that has
okay.
a table with where all these spots are physically located, because unfortunately I don't think all the sims have the spots depicted
Gotcha.
either at all or correctly.
Gotcha.
I would just add to that, if you don't care about where you're parking, like that's fine. If you do care about where you're parking, if you, we would ask that you sort of do the homework and know sort of where you want to be parking before you get on the ground, just to sort of minimize any delays coming through.
Gotcha.
It will be under miscellaneous, Rob.
Miscellaneous, yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, for some reason the stuff from the FAA website must not be functioning, because all of a sudden I can't get any of those FAA diagrams. Houston Bush pilot briefing, or where is it?
Yeah, in the pilot briefing.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we can just pull it up there. Oh, good. This is actually a really good resource for pilots to look at. Ramp movement. Okay, there's the diagram we were just looking at, and some basic information about some of the ramp spots. All right, very cool. Yep, very good. All right, Phoenix, you want to run us through real quick some of the issues with ground operations out there, if I can get that diagram up, hopefully?
Absolutely not.
I would love to do it though.
I would.
Okay, good.
I would love to.
No, I got you.
No,
Evan.
no, it's okay, Ollie.
Okay.
Would you not trust me?
I
don't know how to control Phoenix.
The big thing at Phoenix is that Terminal 3 South. We kind of already talked about it, but it's really only present in Flight Simulator 2020. Every other flight sim is going to have that as a basically a mirror of the north side of Terminal 3.
Gotcha.
So just be wary of that. The other thing is Romeo and Sierra. So over in West Flow, Romeo and Sierra will both be southbound taxiways, and Tango will be the only northbound. So just keep that in mind when you're kind of planning your taxi route. Or
vice versa.
Anticipating what you might get.
Gotcha.
Even in East Flow, Tango is still north and Sierra is still south, but Romeo becomes a bit of a wild card in East Flow because it's not connected to the departure ends of the runways.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. And then I think we said previously that all these little alleyways in between the terminal piers are all basically non-movement areas for your purposes.
Correct.
Anything short of Charlie, Sierra, Romeo on the south or on the north side. And then if you're on the end of Terminal 4 South, call us before you push onto Delta. Your clearance delivery controller will give you your ground frequency. Call them before you push onto Delta, mostly on Terminal 4 on the right side.
Over here. Gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of people need to push onto Delta, especially if you're on the end. So just call them, request to push onto Delta. they'll tell you to either face east or face west, or tail east or tail west.
Gotcha.
It just depends on what the line looks like, because you might have to taxi like backwards and around to get in line.
Yeah, if we're in
where
west
you
flow and
belong.
you need to push onto delta, you might taxi west to go south to get onto echo to go east.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, so the bridges on Tango, Sierra, and Romeo that go over the access road to the airport, it actually goes to the center. Please don't stop on the bridges. People get grumpy when you stop on the bridges, and you can't deploy your exit slides. So don't stop on the bridges.
Yep. One thing that I found on the last demo flight that I did when we landed at Phoenix was that there is a freeware add-on for the Phoenix airport for Flight Sim 2020 on flightsim.to, and it does update the taxiway signs, so they're correct. So that's a great thing for pilots to get, is that flightsim.to, that freeware update. However, we found that those longer taxiways, Sierra and Tango, were pretty much roller coasters. And there is another freeware package for Phoenix called Terrain Fix that is supposed to kind of smooth that out. So even if you have the freeware airport update, you probably want to get that Terrain Fix as well, because the ground leveling isn't done by that freeware add-on. That first freeware add-on, that second freeware add-on may improve that situation.
Yeah, it's a consequence of that, the road being in the center of the terminal, and it's basically dug into the ground. So yeah. The automatic terrain generation of FS 2020 doesn't like that so much.
Sure. Yep, indeed.
2020 doesn't like much, but I will say.
All right, let's wrap the discussion up as best we can, and we can stick with Phoenix real quick as we talk with the departure procedures. And at Phoenix, I think you said it's all kind of fairly straightforward for the most part, as far as the departures out of Phoenix.
Departures. Everything is either climb via SID or maintain 8,000. And guess what our climb via SIDs are? Maintain 8,000. So, if you go on the Baldy's not RNAV, but top altitude, 8,000.
Yep.
If you go to the, let's just say the Broke, since you're on Bs already, top altitude, 8,000. So you might get a maintain 8,000. You might get a climb via SID, depending on what you're flying out on. Just maintain 8,000. 8,000 doesn't mean 9,000. It doesn't mean your top altitude. But it means 8,000. So just
again,
maintain
that's
8,000.
another thing that we say when you're setting up that initial MCP. Again, that's another thing that comes from those tutorials about how to get airborne in these complex jets where the tutorials aren't necessarily made for VATSIM. But again, there's this tendency to want to set, or you probably were told to set, or taught to set that cruise altitude in that mode control panel, and that is not what you do. You need to be watching that instrument departure that you filed and accepted. If you filed the Broke 1, then you probably should have the Broke 1 in front of you and be looking at what it says to do. But the other thing is, if it's in your clearance, maintain 8,000 again. Then whether it's on the chart or in the clearance, then that's what you need to set in that mode control panel. Is not the cruise altitude, but this initial altitude. Pretty much almost every departure, at least commercial jet departure in the country, is going to have an initial level off that is not your cruise altitude. So you want to get out of that habit of setting that cruise altitude in that mode control panel.
Please maintain 8,000. It makes our arrival controllers' lives way easier, because when you go higher than 8,000, you start to, create mid-airs, and that's not fun for anybody.
Yep, kind of the exact opposite of what the controllers are going for.
Yeah, and we all know that we want our SimAware lines to look really good, because your SimAware is VATSIMs from your online flight tracking service, and you should absolutely use it.
Flight plane tracking service. The only other one I will say is the Mr. Bill 1.
Let me go back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Keep you on your toes there, Rob.
Yeah, and I'm trying to kind of move it along, but as long as you guys don't mind running over, I don't mind running over. Mr. Bill 1.
I don't mind running over anything. Make you go to page 2 too. Gotta get the M in there. It is Mr. Bill. It's not Marble. That is a 90-degree RNAV turn. It's actually a 91-degree RNAV turn.
Yes, it is.
This is a climb via SID, but just make the turn. So
it's different than what we're going to be showing in Houston in just a moment, which is the ones where you do maintain a heading. But these are definitely ones where the direction off the runway is to fly this route. And if you look at the narrative, it says
you're going to
if
be
you're
RNAV
taking
off the runway.
yeah, then you climb this to Zolop, then on 260 to Yuk. Nowhere in here does it say expect vectors, anything like that.
All of these are going to be heading 258 to 1635 your west flow, or 078 to 1630. 1635 is the minimum altitude there. It's 500 over the runway.
Gotcha.
Oh, by the way, in case anybody's curious as to why those SIDs are shaped that way, because they are shaped very weirdly, especially in West Flow with those 91-degree turns. Basically, some old people bought a house near an airport, and it's loud, and they find that odd, and they're grumpy about that. So those are actually noise abatement procedures.
We don't have noise abatement procedures.
Yeah. So that's why they sued the FAA. And this is what the FAA came up with to solve the noise abatement procedures. But you bought a house next to an airport. It's loud. Weird.
Let me tell you the story one day about the fix-it departure out of Baltimore. Anyway, they literally tried to fix it. Anyway, so let's move up to Houston, and we'll talk about how those are different, right? Those are definitely not going to be where you join the route automatically on your own. So
yeah, so I'll be as brief as I can with Houston. I will ask you for 2 departures, Rob. First of all, I'll ask you for the Beltway 7.
Yeah, I gotta get down to where the departures are. Go ahead, sorry.
And the second one I'll ask you, it should be nearby, is the Bendito 5. Because I like to just sort of very briefly compare and contrast them, because they're 2 that we're likely to use during the event.
And most common.
And very common. So the Beltway 7, we'll start with, you'll notice, is disconnected from the airport.
Mm-hmm.
So what you will get is you'll get a heading to fly off the runway, and you'll notice in the departure instructions, it'll say climb on heading whatever, and then expect radar vectors to Dreamer.
Yeah, I cut it off a little bit. But
yeah, that's okay. That's your big clue for expect a heading on departure. What we see with and it comes back to the discontinuity thing that we talked about in departures, but what we see sometimes with sort of less experienced pilots, particularly with this type of departure, is they'll just not think, delete the manual leg or the discontinuity, and they'll just turn on course to the first fix, right? The reason that's a problem is, if you recall what we talked about with the departure and the arrival paths, is they route sort of all around the airport in sort of all directions. So those headings that we assign you are primarily designed to keep you away from our arrivals. And if you turn off those, you run the risk of sort of, heading straight into, an arrival or somebody on a different departure, right? Sort of the thing I want to sort of really get across is, keep that heading, even if you think we've forgotten about you. Keep that heading, and we will turn you. Obviously, if we've forgotten about you, you can come back and say,
right,
yeah, I'm still here. But just please don't turn on your own, because we will sort of endeavor to get you on course. It might take a couple of turns. You might get a funky heading and go, why am I heading this way? Ultimately, just trust the process, and we will get you to Dreamer or somewhere else on that departure and get you on course.
Yeah, but the big key point, the big key takeaway is radar vectors 2 on every one of those. So that means you cannot turn to Dreamer on your own. You don't. You're expected to just wait on that heading until you're told otherwise.
Exactly.
And another note regarding our procedures, like, this is based on which where we're landing, your departure heading, that you will inevitably English that you will eventually get will end up turning you through the finals for the opposite flow. So our goal is to turn you away from the finals, not into them.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you can get some funky headings, right? So like departing the 15s, if we're landing west, one of the things you'll often get is a right turn heading 330, which is sort of a long way around. It's 181 degrees that way, compared to 179 if you turn left. So be careful about this sort of direction of departure. And we will be clear. We'll say turn right heading 330 to just to emphasize
a lot
the
of
direction
times,
of turn that
a
we're
lot of
looking
times
for.
I hear it, turn right turn heading.
Yeah.
You hear that repetition in there just to
Yeah.
emphasize it, because it is pretty much that. I mean, you're essentially turning onto the it's like a right downwind departure off the runway.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
So I would contrast that with the Bandito 5, which you may well get on Friday if you're going to Albuquerque, which is an RNAV off the ground, and you'll get your typical RNAV off the ground phraseology. You can see on the chart that it connects, at least off the 1.5s, directly to SCAM. What I would point out is that the top altitude of that SID is nice and high. It's 16,000, right? But there are crossing restrictions, notably at SCAM at or below 5,000. And if we remember sort of where the arrivals went onto the downwinds, that's to keep you underneath those downwind arrivals until you're clear of them, right? So even though the top altitude is 16, and you can, if your VNAV capable set 16, just be careful and make sure that you are actually going to stop at 5 by SCAM. Because if you climb above that, you run the risk of conflicting with the inbound guys.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this one's a little bit unique in that it's an RNAV off the ground if you're on the 1.5s, but if you're departing 3.3s, or if you're departing westbound, it's
then you'll get a heading.
Vectors. Yeah. Expect vectors.
All of our RNAV off the grounds go off 1.5s. They are sort of very strongly favored as departure runways at Houston. So we use them when we can, but if you're departing anything else, you will get a heading. It's guaranteed.
If it's North Floyd, Houston, just go home.
Yes, go home.
Yes.
But yeah, the key words here: expect radar vectors on those departures. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Or
Did we go ahead. Was somebody about to say something?
Or I was gonna make a joke going off of what Evan said. Then, whatever will we do if both Bush and Hobby are running north? We are insert word here.
We're not going to cancel the. Yeah, we're not going to cancel the op.
Nope.
It's the same thing we got to do if you land on 7 right in Phoenix, or if you land the 1.5s in Houston. You got to go scrub the skid marks off, right?
There you go. All right, Dallas, real quickly, let's run through the climb via SID issues there, just to make sure that we are clear on what's expected.
Yeah, so DFW, like a lot of the other airports, is RNAV off the ground. So if you pull up something like the Darts 8 departure off of DFW.
Got it. Go ahead. Go start talking. I'll catch up.
Kind of go on for that. That's where we talked about the flow dependent, which side of the airport you're departing off of. As you see, there's those. If we're departing south, there's the Lauren and T-Rex RNAV fixes. So it's real important that pilots are putting in the correct departure runway. Because if you were to depart off 1.7 right, and you still had 1.8 left as your departure runway, you're going to cross the center of the airport and fly into an airplane that's departing the opposite runway.
Gotcha. So this is one of the parallel departures where you're going to have that verification of that first fix with your takeoff clearance, yes?
Yes, so you'll verify the first fix. Don't just read back what you thought you hear. Verify with what's in your box, the first fix. And then with these, we see a lot of people will stop at 5,000. They see that Lauren and T-Rex is a 5,000 or above crossing fix. People will stop at that altitude, but the top altitude is 10,000, so you need to climb all the way up.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And
all right.
At least going off of what both you and Mackenzie said regarding verifying the RNAV 2 fix, even though at Houston it's not per se a bigger deal, but since we do have multiple RNAV fixes that we are issuing off of the ground, still read those back just so we know that we issued you the right one for the procedure that you're on.
Gotcha. Very good. All right. I think that's going to wrap it up. And if there are other pieces that we didn't quite cover in good enough detail, like I said, I think we'll probably just have to wrap it up tonight and catch these the next time these airports are featured in a Friday night ops event. But let's come around the room one last time anyway, just to get any closing remarks. It looks like Martyn has already kind of left the building, unfortunately, but I do thank Martyn Musick, the Deputy Air Traffic Manager for Fort Worth, for being here. Oh, he is back. Okay, cool. Let me bring him back down into the room here. So we were just getting ready to say goodnight to you, Martyn, when we realized you'd left the building. But do appreciate you being here. Did you have any last closing remarks to make?
Not really. Other than, if you have questions, ask. Don't be afraid of, don't do something thinking you're doing the right thing and then not being sure. Just make sure to ask. And kind of like a couple other people said previously, use charts are free.
Yeah, speaking of use charts, they're free. That tends to be what Allie says a lot. But Allie, I think you said you had a couple other closing remarks you wanted to touch on real quick.
Yeah, so in addition to being the Albuquerque Air Traffic Manager, one of the many hats that I wear on this network, I'm also a senior developer with the VATSIM tech team. I just want to touch real quick on some of the server issues that we've kind of had some teething issues with velocity as we've rolled that out. So a lot of the server issues, we believe we have those resolved. We saw a lot of server splits over the past few days. We believe we have those fixed up. The big thing is still audio for VATSIM. I know is still giving some people some troubles. The audio for VATSIM team is aware of what's going on. They're working on a fix. We don't have a timeline just yet. But just, be aware that audio for VATSIM is a little temperamental right now, and just to be kind to it. It's a great technology. Just, be kind to audio for VATSIM and be kind to your VATSIM developers, because we all work hard to make sure that this network is up and running for you guys. And going back to what we said at the outset, the pay sucks and the hour sucks, and you do it anyway. So
don't let her say that. They get paid a lot of money.
Oh yeah, I get paid all $0 to develop for this network. But I do it because I do it because I love the network, and so that's absolutely.
We appreciate it greatly, and it is comforting, however, to know, and I'm glad that you said that, because it is comforting to know that the tech team is on top of those issues and is actively working to get them under control. And it is a fantastic upgrade for those that remember VATSIM before AFE, pre mid 2019, and and that ancient voice encoding system that was used.
Roger
the worst. I mean, it sounded robotic, but the worst parts than the sound was that 1.5 second buffering delay that just compounded the problem of folks talking over each other. And it's like you couldn't blame anybody, because nobody knew there was somebody else talking until 1.5 seconds into the conversation, or really 1.5 seconds out and 1.5 seconds. So it's like 3 seconds into your transmission, you realize you're talking at the same time as someone else, and then both of you think you were the first one on frequency. Yeah, it was a mess.
And Rob, I know you're old like I am, but having to deal with not knowing who's talking on frequency.
Yes, not knowing who, like the person who, maybe doesn't enunciate well. Maybe they're running their mixture a little bit full rich, and you can't really tell what their call sign is. And
full pressure's a little low.
Yeah, exactly. So it's great to have that little box that tells you exactly who it was that was talking, because I do. It's a crutch that I do lean on, but yeah, it's definitely nice to have. All right, sorry. As we continue around the room to get closing remarks, Mac, did you have anything to close with?
I just remember when you're looking at charts, the graphical part's optional. The text is the required part. Make sure you're reading the charts, not just looking at the picture.
I've been caught out on that a few times with speed restrictions in the notes. Is starting to become a little bit more prevalent now. Like, you have to actually read the notes in addition to the diagrams. So that's great advice, and advice that I need to take, even because I've missed a couple. So easy mistake to make. But read and make sure that you catch all that stuff. All right, Joshua.
Nothing from me that's not already been said, I don't think. Just thank you very much for your time, and I'm hoping to see lots of people at Houston on Friday.
Very good. All right, Michael.
You're welcome, Joshua.
Kind of along the same things as Josh, but going back to the note we made about speed in reading the charts. A lot of current charts, or at least RNAV turbojet arrivals, will have a note on them specifically saying that you should descend via the Mach number until intercepting 280
Yeah, good
knots
point.
or until slowed by the star.
Yep, that's a good one. Another speed restriction that kind of just pops up. It's not really along the waypoints, but it is there. It is in the text, and you are responsible for it. And that's a great point, Michael. Thank you very much for being back with us. And Evan, you get the honor of sending us out, sir.
Oh, yeah. Well, I honestly, Rob, what I want to know is what GA field you would fly into, what your favorite GA field is in each of the airspaces.
My favorite GA field. Okay, all right. Well, I gotta give my love to Hooks. Is that what it's called? David Wayne Hooks, because like I said, there's a very good friend of the Slant Alpha stream who loves to control there. So that's gonna have to be my. Oh yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
At Dallas, I think it's executive. Is this what's executive? Where's that? Is that the one down here at the bottom? Yeah. I just it's a neat looking little place, and I don't know, I flew in and out of there once, and there was something about having the lakes nearby. It was real scenic. I have to confess, I don't do a whole lot of flying in the Dallas Fort Worth area, so maybe I need to do more of that. I did a couple streams where I flew up here in the north and east, and it's like you think you can navigate all that visually, but you realize all the water looks the same. So So maybe I'll need to try that again. But I think the one time I flew in and out of executive was a lot of fun. And then for Phoenix, I think it was Chandler, yes. Chandler that made a great launching point to depart out, get that that east or west transition right over the Phoenix Skyharbor, and then up north to points north, such as Grand Canyon and things like that. So those are the three that I think I would consider my favorites. But lots and lots that I have yet to explore. So any that I didn't name, please don't feel slighted. I will get there eventually. Is that fair?
Good choices. Good choices.
No problem. All right. Well, thanks to all of you for being on. We truly appreciate your time. And I know that we ran a little bit long with the panel, but I'm still up and ready to do a demo flight. We are going to boot up the Working Title CJ4 mod for Flight Sim 2020 and do ourselves a little demo flight. We're going to fly from Houston George Bush into Dallas Love Field. So give me about 5 minutes. I'm going to try to keep the intermission down to that, but it's always dependent upon how long it takes the sim to boot up and how long it takes the Furry co-pilots to get outside and all that stuff. But we'll be back with you in just a few in the Working Title mod for the Citation CJ4 Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 as we fly from Houston George Bush Intercontinental up to Dallas Love here on the Friday Night Hotspot FNO Preview Show. Stick tight. We've got lots of programming left to do for you. All right, guys, we are back with you. It's the Friday Night Hotspot FNO Preview show, and we're going to do a demo flight in the Working Title CJ4 mod for Flight Sim 2020 from Houston, George Bush Intercontinental up to Dallas Love Field as a preview of the Feel the Love Friday Night Ops event coming up this Friday on the VATSIM network here within VAT USA. Again, want to thank all of our panel discussion participants there for a great discussion that did run kind of long tonight, so I do apologize for that, but we're going to do some flying, guys. We're not going to do it in the DC-6, although that would be quite the adventure, but these flights we typically demo for you in the Citation CJ4 just to give you a glimpse of how some of the RNAV procedures and the FMC entries go. So let's go ahead and get that up and running. Do I care about the liveries? No, not really. Let's go ahead and select departure airport. We're going to go, I need to move my keyboard up here. And all these things that on a normal night when I'm streaming on my own channel, I would get done before the stream goes live. We always kind of have to do on the fly here. Let's zoom to details. Now, where is the main general aviation area of this airport? Let's go ahead and see. Over here, I think I do have all the flight planning stuff. Got the route that's programmed in the SkyVector. At least the route I did research ahead of time this time. It's the Wilson 8 to Magic and then the Mundo 4. And the Mundo 4 was contingent upon the airport landing north, I think. Let's go ahead and pull that spy back up and see if they still are. We still got some staffing up there, which is fantastic. We had an ATIS running up there before, but let's look and see if we can just get a METAR. Wind's calm there, so they might just try and throw me off by switching me to whatever the opposite is that I file, which would be just fine. So we'll we'll just assume that we're going to the Mundo 4 and runway 31 left. Or no, 31 left was the one they said was closed, I believe. So we have to be ready to do 31 right. We do have, I did pull up the red and 4 just in case we do get switched to that. So actually, we'll pull up the approaches when it gets a little closer. I'll tell you what, we'll start with what we need for the departure, which would be the airport diagram, the Wilson 8 departure, and then either the Mundo or the Redden. So we'll file one, we'll see if we end up with the other, and that's all well and good. Where are we going to start, though? Where's general aviation stuff? I feel like, okay, there's an FBO ramp kind of over here on the east side. So is there a starting location there? Okay, there is. There it is. If we zoom in here, set that as our departure. I'm going to wind the time back so that it is daytime here. It's a pretty short flight, so let's set it to 3 o'clock, and maybe it'll be sunset by the time we are starting to get down. Oh, and we got some adverse weather there too. Let's look at Sky Vector and see. Do I have? I have text weather, icing, and MRMS up, and it doesn't look like there's supposed to be any adverse weather here. All the adverse weather is supposed to be well off to the east. Okay, well, that's interesting. Flight Sim 2020 being Flight Sim 2020, as it tends to do. But let me get my checklist up here in front of me, and all kinds of other stuff that I do, again, typically take care of before we get the stream started. This is my newer control profile, which you did see me fly last week, and God bless me, I hope I land this plane a little bit better than I did last time for you, because that was a little bit embarrassing. I mean, it wasn't terrible, it wasn't egregious, but it was a little bit of a firmer hit than I normally like to do in this aircraft. But I guess the first thing we need to do is get into the controls options and set up the controls for the CJ4. Again, if there is a way that the plane could automatically be associated with a control profile, I haven't figured that out yet. But there's the C25 profile, and I'm going to change this to the C25 left. And then we'll change this one to the C25 right, because I do have two of those in the virtual cockpit here. So is that set up right? C25C alpha, C25C left, C25C right. We should be good to go. We'll apply and save. We'll go back and we'll resume. I just have to make sure sometimes when the throttles boot up, they switch. Okay, so they are correct. And so the throttle and prop lever should be, the spoiler and flap lever should be up, and then the gear and parking brake should be down. So those are now all good to go. Let's make sure the switches are off. Everything else is off. Okay. All right, let's get to it, guys. I guess the other thing that I probably should do if I'm going to connect to the network is load up vPilot. Get the mic moved here. I'm sorry, that's probably loud. Get that loaded up, and we'll get our landing rate predictor up, because we are going to get some predictions as to our vertical descent rate when we touch down. Hopefully it'll be a little bit lower number than it was last time, but of course that always remains to be seen. Did vPilot not start? Okay, there it goes. And 3.0.7 is the current version. And so there we go. We got that all connected, and we are ready to get rolling. Control profile's been set, levers have been set, viewpoints moved up, fuel and payload. My spreadsheet says for this trip we need 47% fuel. So let's go ahead and get that set here down to 47. We're only doing the one hop and some alternates, reserves, and contingencies. So that should set us to about 2,700. And yeah, about 1350 per tank is fine. So that's good. We'll set the payload up to just under the max gross. And we just need to make a note of the number that we loaded it to. It doesn't have to be exactly this number when we put it into the FMC, but we need to get it close to that. So we'll have to just make a note of that. All right, that's done. battery switch can come on. That's here. We get the emergency lights. We get the standby displays. We get the avionics set into dispatch mode just for now. Nav and logo lights can come on. I've got switches for those now, which is kind of good. No, I've got a switch for the nav, but I don't have a switch for the logo, so I hit that down there manually with the mouse. Let's go ahead and get the FMC position initialized. So we'll just pop the GPS point in there. And we'll set up the audio panel, which would be COM 1 can be on, COM 2 can be off, marker beacons off, everything else off. Okay, so we should be good to go. And vPilot should confirm that we're squawking, that we're transmitting and receiving only on COM 1. Okay, alright, so that's all done. Let us see now. We can file our flight plan. I'll drag the box over here so y'all can see what I'm filing. It's going to be IFR. It is going to be from KIAH to KDAL. Our alternate for today is Abilene, KABI. Departure time, I think we're going to try to go off at the bottom of the hour, but man, we're tight on that already. We'll just say 0330, but we're going to be pushing that. Probably get up a little late. 039 in the air, 241 in the tanks. Cruise speed about 450. And cruise altitude 22,000 feet. As a matter of fact, because we're only 24,000 feet. So because of that, I did want to change that. So because of that, we're probably going to be less fuel efficient. We're going to burn more fuel on this than what my spreadsheet says, but that's fine. Let me just run through those numbers again because they probably did change slightly. 0340 is going to be the wheels up time. Yeah, 041 and 243 in the tanks. Okay, 450, 24,000. We are not Slant Alpha today. We are Slant Lima. Catch the route that we had, the Wilson 8. Magic and then Mundo. We're going to file that. I think that should be all we need to do. Okay. Oh, while I'm over there, I always forget. IAH ATIS information. Uniform 3014 or 3034. Temps 11. Departing the 15s. Okay. So 3034 is the altimeter, which we'll set here in just a moment. The COM 1 frequency is, we got a ground controller up, so that's going to be 21.7. We'll get that over here in the tune page and get ready to talk to him. 121.7 goes there. And 2535 we can preset as the tower frequency there. And we got 2 approach controllers, so we'll have to see what they give us as far as a departure frequency. Alright, so comm frequency set. We can go ahead and get our clearance. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. And what is the official call sign of this facility? Is it Bush? Let's see what it says on the diagram. Nope, it's just Houston. Okay, so there we go. Houston ground, citation 514 Delta Victor information uniform IFR to Dallas Love.
Number 514 Delta Victor, hello, Houston ground. You're close to Dallas Love Airport, Wilson 8. Magic transition as filed. Maintain 4,000. Expect flight level 24010 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 120.050. Squawk 0550.
All right, we're cleared to Dallas Love, Wilson 8. Magic transition that is 5 will maintain 4,000, expecting 240 and 10. 12005 and 0550. 514 Delta Victor. We got 0s and 5s running
514
today.
Delta Victor, your readback is correct. Expect runway 15 left for departure. Call me ready for taxi.
I will expect 15 left and call you to you. 5 4 Delta Victor. Thanks. All right, so no surprises there, really. We can get into the flight plan page. Origin is K.
Hello, Houston. Ground. You to the Nolans Airport. Mugs for departure.
Going
K. Maintain 4,000.
DAL.
29010 minutes after departure.
We are going to depart on the...
Squawk 2051.
What do we say it was? The Wilson. So we're going to go ahead and... Again, I don't know my alphabet tonight. Wilson to Magic. And execute. Oh, we got to go back and select the runway. Yeah, sorry. Let's just try that again. Sometimes it's...
615 Sierra,
what did you say? 15 left?
Expect runway 15 right for departure.
Yeah, 15 left, and now we can select. Might make it a little bit...
15 right for departure, 15 here.
514 Delta Victor, Houston ground.
Ground 514 Delta Victor.
541 Delta Victor. You can expect runway 15 right for departure as well.
15 right for departure. 54 Delta Victor. Yeah, I was just going to say, it doesn't look like 15 left likes to go to Wilson. So that will make things a little easier for us. 5 right.
One person on board with information.
Yeah, it still doesn't want to do that.
American 579, you said you're requesting VFR for pattern work, is that correct?
All right, let's look at the Wilson and see why that might be. It might just be an error in the FMC.
Alpha 579, yes, pattern work.
Alpha 579, you're cleared into the class Bravo.
This might be one of those weird ones where we're going to have to kind of fudge it in the
3000 squawk 2120.
So we can do the Wilson, but the Wilson doesn't have any runways associated with it. So it's not going to do our takeoff performance if we don't have a runway to select. One way around it, and you're not supposed to do this in the real world,
is correct. You ready for taxi?
but one way to do it would be to not select the departure procedure. We'll take 15 right and we'll execute that. And then in the legs, we will just enter those points manually. Again, that's a little iffy from a real world standpoint, but from a sim standpoint, sometimes you got to just make the software do what it's trying not to do.
American 579. I'm sorry.
We'll go to the arrivals.
Sorry, say that again.
And it's the Mundo.
Alpha 579. I'm going to give you amended altitude.
Magic.
Maintain VFR out or below 2,000.
And we think it's going to be. Did I say 3-1 right?
Maintain or below 2,000.
Mundo is.
Alpha 579.
And they're landing north, so we're going to go 3-1 right. And execute. Again, that might change by the time we get up there, but that's what we're going to put in for now. And then we'll come back to the legs.
146, you get taxi runway 15 left via Romeo Bravo, Romeo Charlie, Whiskey Bravo, Whiskey Whiskey.
Sorry, to 15 left, Romeo Bravo, Romeo Charlie, Whiskey Bravo, Whiskey Whiskey.
Alpha 579, ready for taxi.
Alpha 579.
So prior to Magic
runway
now,
15
we need the points
right, November 2, November
from the
Bravo,
Wilson, which is
Charlie.
WYLSN. Again, this is very, very iffy from a real world standpoint. WILSN.
November 2, November Bravo, Whiskey, and Charlie.
Yeah, the first one.
I'm sorry, Alpha 579, taxi runway 15 right, was all correct except for it's November Bravo to Whiskey Charlie.
Alpha 579, November Bravo.
And then following this path, so Wilson, then Mont, then I can't read that. KIJOY, is that what that says? KIJOY, and then Magic.
Houston Ground 996, request taxi runway 15 left.
That is 96. You can taxi to runway 15 left, November Bravo, November Echo, Whiskey, Whiskey.
KLJOY, Killjoy. Interesting.
Taxi 15 left, November Bravo, November Echo, Whiskey Whiskey, United 96.
Let's back up. We missed what our points didn't take. WLSON. Then Mont, MONNT. And then Killjoy KL. JOY. And then Magic. Okay, so execute that. WYLSN, okay. Looking at why that's first one's 590 miles and that second one's 576 miles. Let's try that one last time. WYLSN. Execute, and then let's delete that one. Oh, we're unable to delete the from waypoints. We don't have to delete it. We'll just go direct to the next one. Nope. WYLSN.
America 146 is going to be traffic to your 2 o'clock. Taxi November
And
Bravo is going to be
okay, that's a little bit better. All right. Again, you really would have wanted to select that departure with the departure runway in the FMC. The FMC is not cooperating. In the real world, you'd go back to your maintenance, or you'd go update your database, or whatever you have to do in the real world to make that fly from a legitimacy standpoint. In the sim world, you can kind of just force it and make it happen. But it's Wilson, and then Mont, and then Killjoy, and then Magic, and then the Arrival.
The American 738, 996.
Let's go back to the checklist now.
Tower 125-350, good day.
So we got our clearance, we got the flight plan in. Let's go to the performance initialization again. We had to select a runway. That's why we were so adamant that we had to select a runway to make that happen. Let's just tell it we've got 8 passengers. It doesn't really matter how this adds up, but as long as it adds up to that 17 and change. So what do we need to add there? 700 pounds and then 27. Okay, so 2,700. And that gets us right up to that 7. It doesn't have to be exactly, but somewhere between 17 and 17.1, that's what we loaded it to. As long as it matches whatever you had on this page here, close enough, then you're good to go. Cruise altitude, we had said 240. We'll do our takeoff performance. The static outside temperature is 10 degrees. We'll go ahead and type that in. Everything else on that page is not mandatory entry, so we can just go ahead and go to the next page, and there's our V speeds. We'll go ahead and send those over to the primary flight display. But again, it's 110. If we have any problems with an engine or a major safety issue before 110, we'll abort. If we get past 110, we're taking those problems airborne with us. 111 is when we rotate, so right on top of that V1, we're going to rotate, take it airborne. V2 is what we'll pitch to. If we got one engine functioning, VT 140 this is really still part of the engine out procedure, but 140 is essentially what you also pitch to if you got 2 engines functioning at that point. And the plane's going to want to accelerate past that anyway, but that's kind of
United 96, contact tower 125-350, good day.
All right, so I think we're good to go now. We can go ahead and get the beacon light on, which I've got down here. We'll go ahead and get the engine number 2 starter up and running, so we don't kill our battery. We'll see. Yeah, we're supposed to be pushing kind of like now. We'll let that spool up, and we'll just monitor it to make sure that the engine start procedure works as it should. Again, it's going to ignite itself automatically at 12. This should stabilize about 53, 54. This should stabilize about 23, 24, somewhere in there. So we'll make sure all that's going as it should. And we'll take a peek around, see what else is going on around the airport. If the temperatures aren't going out of control, we'll assume everything is good here so far, and we'll go ahead and get the climate control on. And what else? So we can get the rest of the avionics on as well. This is where we'll go ahead and set that altimeter, which was what, 3034, I think it was, 3034. So we'll spin that up in here. The charted field elevation is what, 96 feet, and that's pretty close to what's shown in the altimeter, so that's good. And I think we need to go ahead and do that in the standby as well. So yeah, 3034. And there we go. Let's go ahead and set our assigned squawk code here in the tune page, which was 0550. There we go. TARA mode also activates your mode Charlie. So that's good. Let's go ahead and get the nav display up. I like putting it into plan mode. Of course, we do need to undo the weather radar for now. We'll go ahead and zoom it out. Whoops. So we can kind of double check that everything here did in fact populate in the way we intended. And again, we had to manual enter that, which is kind of a no-no, but in the sim world, it's just what we had to do to make it work. Whoops, 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 whoops. Center it on the 2 points, and then just step it up to the next point a few times. And we can see that it does indeed kind of connect the way we think. And we'll verify that the arrival procedure is there and intact and good when we get a little closer to it. But for right now, we're focusing on the departure. We'll brief the arrival when it comes time to do that, so everything there looks as expected and as programmed. Let's change the format of the primary display. Yeah, I like leaving this in the north up plan mode, even though that's not really intended to be used in flight, and the plane will not be followed automatically. I'll just manually step it forward. On this side, I do like the track up mode of the route. So again, this isn't how most operators real world will do it, and this side in the north up mode will not follow the plane automatically, but it's kind of what makes me comfortable, so that is indeed what I will do. Let us see what else we need to do. Yeah, okay, so the last thing would be to set the initial altitude and the initial heading. The initial altitude was 4,000, even though the SID calls for 16, the IFR clearance said 4. That overrides what the procedure dictates, so we'll set the initial altitude to 4,000 only until we're cleared higher. Only 4,000. Only 4,000. There we go. 4,000 feet, showing in the primary display. And then again, what's the procedure say to do off of the 15s? Is 149 and expect vectors. So we will set the heading to 149. Okay, down. There it is, 149. And we will know that we can't turn off of that heading until we are told to by the controller. Alright. Safety and seatbelt lights can come on. We're going to get this engine number 1 fired up as quickly as we can. We turn the climate control off while we're doing that, or we might overload the battery. And again, that ignition at 12% automatically hits itself. Engine should stabilize right around where the other one did, 53, 23, 24, somewhere in there. You'll notice the warning light, the warning message is all disappearing. Once you get that status display in there, you can assume everything's kind of gone as normal. And climate control can then come back on. We would then check our flight controls. Again, not really checking the hardware movement, but we might as well check that our hardware is all being detected by the sim. But in addition, we would want to check to make sure that the outside control surfaces are all moving as intended and anticipated freely and correctly for what we are trying to do. So we'll just assume that somebody out there is giving us the big thumbs up, that the control surfaces all moved as expected, and we're good to go there. Flaps 15 can be set. That's that lever there. And we'll set and confirm. And then I like the trim right at the bottom of the green range, so basically right where it is good. Oh, yeah, we didn't have to turn quite so far to see it, but there it is. Flaps 15 and trim at the bottom of the green range. So we are all set. I'm going to go ahead and start the passenger briefing because it is kind of a long one. There is a short version, but it omits some critical stuff, so I go ahead and just do the long one. We just go ahead and get it started right now. The taxi routing from our FBO to 15 right is, it looks like North Whiskey Charlie to 15 right. So we'll go ahead and be ready to do that. Whiskey Charlie is, we got to face, they're kind of facing northeast, so I guess we're going to go over there and exit out on the Whiskey Charlie. Is there a guy to our right? No? Okay. All right, let's do parking brake off. And let's pivot around to the right here. I assume this ramp is all non-movement area, and we would need to just touch base with them before we enter out onto that taxiway. So we'll pivot around in a manner that will be unlikely to ingest the ramp agent. It yelled at me there for a minute just because I don't have the pitot and static on just yet. But we'll get those on as soon as we are ready to roll. Now, which switch is that? I gotta remember. Is that one? Yeah, okay, good. And that's the anti-icing. Okay, good. Alright, let's do one more real quick check of the ATIS to see whether it's updated or whether it's still on uniform. It is. Ground Citation 514 Delta Victor at the FBO ramp on the southwest side of the field with uniform. We're ready to taxi.
51 Delta Victor, taxi to runway 15 right via Whiskey Charlie.
15 right via Whiskey Charlie, 514 Delta Victor. Alright, taxi light can come on. We do want to test the brakes before we get too far out onto the taxiway. Make sure brakes are all working. Brakes are working. Okay, good.
An emergency exit is located at the right side of the aft cabin. To open the emergency exit, remove the plastic panel covering the release handle.
Check and make sure it's clear. Oh, wait a minute. Is this Whiskey Charlie? Yeah, we're on like a service road or something.
Discard the emergency exit overboard. Exit the cabin by stepping through the opening onto the wing and continue forward off the wing. The main entry door, which you use to enter the aircraft,
okay, so this is Whiskey Charlie.
used as an emergency exit. To open the main entry door, first push in on the
I'm a little disappointed. We only got one whiskey.
Second, pull down on the inner handle approximately 90 degrees. Push the door open and lower the stairs to exit the aircraft.
All right, guys, on the way out, we'll go ahead and get the weather radar on. So that one twice. We get the terrain radar back on over here. Although I'm convinced, no one's told me for sure. I'm not really sure. I'm convinced that the terrain display is GPS based in this aircraft and not radar based, but I don't know that for sure. Just to be on the safe side, though, we don't want to fry anybody on the ramp. We don't want to microwave anybody on the ramp, so we'll go ahead and wait until we get rolling before we turn both of those on.
For information on the location and use of fire extinguishers, as well as other emergency
The tower frequency we have preset. We'll wait until the handoff, and then we can preset our departure frequency, which was 120.05. So we'll be ready to do that here in just a moment. I am going to go ahead and engage Toga, but that's just on the FMC, really. That doesn't engage anything on the throttles. This aircraft does not have an auto throttle. So that's just going to start the takeoff pitch indication, and it's going to start sequencing the points in your FMC. So it doesn't really do anything other than that. So it's kind of safe to do that. Remember that we are going to be in heading mode. We're not going to be direct to that point, Wilson, until we're told to be. And how close are we to our takeoff time? 10:42 almost. Yeah, so I think in my revision I said 10:30 to push and 10:40 to fly. So really not too bad behind that. Is this our runway entrance, or do we got one more? That's Whiskey Quebec. Okay, yeah, we gotta go one more. Taxiway signs are correct. That's comforting.
Delta Victor, contact tower 12535. Good day.
2535, 5 and 4 Delta Victor. See it. So 2535. Swap that in.
And ground 0.7.
Ground 0.7.
Thank you.
And then 20.05, or was it? Shoot, now I don't remember.
Alpha 579, I'm just going to get off. Thank you so much. That was my first VFR pattern landing. Thanks for being cool with me, and I'll see you later.
20.05 is indeed correct.
Thanks for flying. We'll see you next time.
2005. 2005. We get that preset into the standby. And as soon as we're ready to, we'll let our tower controller know that we are here. Tower citation 514 Delta Victor, 15 right, ready to go.
514 Delta Victor, Houston Tower, hello, the wind's 3106 on departure, turn right heading 320, runway 15 right, clear for takeoff.
Alright, right to 320, clear for takeoff, 15 right, 5 Delta Victor. Alright, you heard the man. Strobes, landing lights on, taxi light off. Pitot heat is on. And tower, sorry, 514 Delta Victor, the heading again.
320 with a right 10.
320 for the right turn, 5 for Delta Victor. Alright, yeah. Probably should dial the number in first, because you're more apt to forget that. Alright, get stopped, get that dialed in, 320.
Tower, American 335 is midfield.
American 335, thanks, traffic, so another citation, just
engines
runway 15 right.
responding normally and symmetrically.
Runway 26, clear to land.
We'll pop them all the way up into
26 left, clear to land.
takeoff.
26 left, clear to land for American 335.
Thank you.
Maintain center line as best we can. Remember, V1 and rotate are right on top of each other at about 110. So away we go. Alright, gear coming up with positive climb. We can pitch to maintain 140, which is pretty aggressive pitch. Get through 1,000, we'll get the flaps in. Get the throttles from cruise to climb, and we'll start the right turn. Now we can pitch to the 240.
Delta Victor, turn right, heading 360, contact departure.
Alright, 360 now, and contact departure, 5 for Delta Victor, we'll see ya. Alright, 360. But wait a minute, my thing goes to 000. No, it doesn't actually. Departure citation 514 Delta Victor's 3,200 going to 4,000 on the 360 heading.
Citation 514 Delta Victor, Houston departure, how you doing? Radar contact, clear Wilson, climb maintain 16,000.
Wilson 16,000, 514 Delta Victor. Alright, so we'll spin it up to 16.
And citation 5 Delta Victor, question for you when you get a chance.
Yeah, stand by. Alright, let's get legs, direct Wilson, execute, autopilot, nav, flight level change to 240, and we're in climb mode. Just double check that everything came in the way it was supposed to there. I think we're okay. Departure 514 Delta Victor, go ahead.
Which Fat USA team is the best team?
Social media team.
Exactly.
Go team. Alright, so double check that everything happened as it should have. We got the flaps in, got the gear up. We are in altitude select at 16,000. We're in LNAV. We've captured 240. Post-departure stuff. Yeah, we did go into climb mode. Yeah, everything worked fairly well. More or less as planned on that one, I must say. Through 10,000 a lot of times.
4 Delta Victor, contact Houston Center 134.42, go team.
3442, 5-4 Delta Victor, see ya. 3442. Houston Center, citation 514 Delta Victor's 10,700 going to 16,000.
Citation 514 Delta Victor, Houston Center, hello, climb maintain flight level 240.
240, 514 Delta Victor. Alright, up we go. So, in a lot of aircraft, the plane's going to want to accelerate through 10. In the citation, it just it holds 240 all the way up. It will switch itself over to Mach 0.6, I think it's Mach 0.64 or 65, I can't remember.
Executive 537, that approach will be made with Houston.
I think it's Mach 6.4.
Expect direct Galveston here in just a second.
As it transitions up through that point where the indicated airspeed kind of decays off and is no longer really a relevant figure as far as your forward progress, it switches over to monitoring you by Mach mode. It will make that switch automatically, but we'll make sure that it does.
Citation 4 Delta Victor, clear direct Magic.
Direct Magic, 5-4 Delta Victor. Alright, let's get down here, go legs, Magic, pop it up to the magenta, execute.
And November 4 Delta Victor, what's your planned indicated airspeed of flight level 240?
It should be 305 probably.
Roger.
I don't think we'll be high enough. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. At 240, we're not going to be high enough to merit that transfer over to Mach 0.64. So our VNE today is going to be 305, and we'll just run it up to that when we get up there.
3034. 3034, thank you.
Through 18, we can go ahead and switch it over to standard. All we got to do is bump that once. It'll do that automatically, setting us all the way back down to 16.5. Go ahead and advance the MFD a little bit. Again, like I said, I like to just have that step ahead and stay in north up mode, but since that mode is not made to follow the aircraft, I kind of bastardize it and make it do what I want it to do, so kind of just force the issue there.
Control aircraft hazardous weather information over Leona. Hey, Embraer 145 reported moderate.
We don't have an ATIS at Dallas. We do have an ATIS at
0247
yeah, we don't have an ATIS at Love. We do have an ATIS at Fort Worth. Let's just get a METAR there. Wind's still showing calm, so again, I'm planning on 3-1 right, but we'll see what they give us, and I have a feeling they're going to try and switch it up on us, so that's okay. Red Bull number 2, guys. The over-under was 2.5, I believe.
Executive 208, contact Houston approach 120.05.
2005, 208.
And November 17 Alpha Whiskey. It looks like you're pretty low on the profile descent here. You really shouldn't have started your descent until you got to barbecue.
Roger, that's our mistake. I saw.
Alright. One thing I always like to do in this aircraft, because we start that number 2 before we start the number 1, we sit on the ramp with just that one engine running.
Roger. Would you like us to climb to a...
We do end up with a slight fuel imbalance. The left side is now, what is that, 9 pounds heavier? I'm going to take a chance here. 9 pounds is nothing to write home about, but you know me. It's going to bother me. So I'm going to go ahead and start the rebalance, but of course, as soon as I start it, we're also leveling out, so multitasking not being necessarily my strong suit all the time. We'll see if I remember. While I'm monitoring the speed running up to 305 and getting ready to pull it back from climb into cruise, I'm also monitoring the fuel balance. Yeah, it works in my favor because the fuel imbalance was pretty slight. So there we are. We're pretty much equal there. Go ahead and equal that out. Now, the weird thing is, because I now have 2 independent throttle controls, which is kind of new to me within the last month or so, it is possible that the fuel will get out of balance again if the engines are not set to exactly the same power setting, which we found last time we flew this thing. So it's possible that they'll get slightly out of balance again, and I'll probably fix and forget, and then end up making it way worse than what it was. But that's kind of what we do. Okay, we lost our Fort Worth Center, but we still have regional approach, and I'm told that Dallas ground, Dallas Love ground is hopping up soon.
Runway 36, the Corpus altimeter is
Alright, so right up under that 300 knot mark. Let's go ahead and back these down. Climb to cruise. And maybe to about 93. See what that does for us.
Just to maintain 13,000. The Galveston altimeter is 3034. 3034 just to maintain 13,000. Exit at 537. Pacific 6696.
At cruise, we'll go ahead and get the seatbelt signs off. Oh, through the 10. Yeah, through the 10 we can get the landing lights off, so we'll do that. What else? Did I miss anything else? Landing and logo lights off. The logo lights look like they're already off. Speed's settling in nicely. So let me just double check here. Landing logo lights, fuel rebalance we did. Barrow to primary through 18 we did. Seatbelts, okay. Yeah, we're all good. So the next thing to do would be to kind of brief that arrival.
6,000. There 6150 Houston Center. Hello, climb maintain funnel
so
29.
See, Dallas Love ground is up, but we still don't have the ATIS. Might be popping up here any moment. That spy's not showing it, but okay, there it is actually.
6150 Houston Center. Climb maintain funnel 29. Clear direct out at.
Information hotel. Wind is calm. 10 statute miles and clear. 3035. I'm going to go ahead and preset the 3035 here.
Down to 2. 10 Pacific 6696, turn
there it
right
is.
heading
So you can spin that, and it'll put it in like a
Airport
standby. It's almost like the standby
85.
frequency on the radio. But if you don't bump it, it'll just keep it there kind of in that standby position. So that's good. We'll just leave it right like it is. Looks like we're right up under that 305. I'm going to back it down just a little bit, just to make sure we don't start setting up that overspeed warning. Maybe we'll go down to about 92%.
Wind is 0206, runway 36, clear to land.
Oops. That'll be close enough, and we'll see what happens.
I have the field in sight, sir. Pacific 6696, thanks, cleared visual approach.
Anyway, sorry, we were back to
runway 2, clear to land.
Clear to land, runway 2. Pacific 6696.
visual approaches. 3-1 right. Okay, so I do have that correct then. The northbound arrival. Let's come back, and we're kind of done with the Wilson. We're in the situation where we got the Mundo, which says
direct shows descend maintain 4000, exit 537.
Dallas landing north, and when Dallas is landing south, expect the red. So we did file the Mundo. We had information earlier that Dallas was landing north. It looks like they have kept that. So here's the Redden. In case we did have to switch, the Redden basically would put us on a left downwind to Dallas Love off of this 315 heading, whereas the Mundo puts us more or less on a straight in on this 313. And so what did it say? Visual approaches? Visual approach 3-1 right, but we're going to go ahead and put in the ILS just so we have the points in the system.
Alpha Whiskey, contact Houston, approach 120.05.
So it is the Mundo. What we're going to do then is make sure that all these points imported in with the correct altitude restrictions. The speed restrictions in this aircraft do not import in because there's no auto throttle. And you notice the minimum altitude of 240. If you caught earlier that I had originally planned 220 and I changed it to 240, that was why. And that was Michael's point talking about them capping those arrivals at flight level 300. I've remembered that the block altitude there was 300 to 240. So I was like, oh, I think I put 220 in the spreadsheet. I'm going to up that to 240. So that was due to Michael's point there. But this plane does not have an auto throttle, and it does not import the speed restrictions. So if we want the speed restrictions in the FMC, we'll have to type them manually. With a benefit to that, you might say, well, why would you bother to put the speed restrictions in if the plane can't maintain those speeds for you? Well, the beauty of it is it'll throw a warning up on the FMC in bright yellow text, or on the primary nav display in bright yellow text, if you are coming up on one of those speed restrictions and you're too fast or too slow. So it definitely does seem to benefit you to do that. So I like having those reminders, and so we will definitely put those in. I'm going to look at this on the screen here as we are looking at it, and then I'm going to move it off screen and double check everything in the FMC. But just so you know where the information is coming from, it happens is between 240 and 300 with the 280 speed. And then here, I guess, goofy. The guys at the FAA, man, they think they're hilarious. The magic happens here, Jackie.
November 2722 Alpha Houston Center, roger.
So the magic happens here, and we'll make sure that 240 to 300 is it happens with 280. And it looks like Orville. 9,000 and 250 there. And then Mundo and then Gary. All of a sudden we go into like cats. Mungo Jerry and Rumple Teaser or something. I don't know. It's drilled into my head from when I was a tiny guy.
Georgetown wind 3003, runway 36, clear to land.
3003, 36 were cleared, FedEx 1226.
Alright, so I've outed myself as a musical fan, so... Next thing to do is go ahead and verify these points then, huh? 240 to 300 happens is correct. Let's go 280 and
November 4 Delta Victor descend via the Mundo 4 arrival. The Love field altimeter is 3035.
3035 and descend via the Mundo 4 5 Delta Victor. Okay, so at this point, we can go ahead and set the lowest published altitude
Pacific 6696, welcome to New
on the
Orleans.
arrival,
Taxi to parking,
9,000.
Central Park. My pleasure.
93, 92, 91.
King Air 1178, welcome to Corpus
9,000.
Christi, taxi to parking,
We
straight
can
out
go ahead and
Central
put it into VNAV mode. Okay, so we got a little bit before top of descent, but not much. Let's go ahead and get the rest of those points in 240 to 300, 280. We said the next restriction, Orville at 9,000, and that's 250 knots.
Descend via Gosher 3 arrival, Delta 295, thanks.
And then, yeah, the rest of those points are fine. From Gary, we don't need the redden, but we can pull up the
Southwest 1030, Houston Center, good evening. Clear to the Houston.
Yeah, see, it's warning us about that speed. The speed that happens is 280, so we're going to need to start slowing down here real soon.
Expect flight level 360, 1 minutes after departure. Departure frequency with me, and squawk 7352.
31 right.
Yep, Southwest 1030, clear to the Houston Bush Airport via radar vectors direct.
Bashy, so there's not really a transition off of Gary. We're still going to just be 313 until told.
Maintain 5,000. Expect flight level 360, 1 minutes after
So we'll leave the discontinuity in there.
Frequency with me, squawk 7352.
We'll go ahead and start slowing it down to 280. Oof. Just got a whack of turbulence there. Alright, so there's 280.
Southwest 1030, read that correct. Pushman, start your discretion, call for taxi. Expect runway 2 for departure. And I didn't know Southwest flew Airbuses.
They do on VATSIM. And then let's get the airport diagram up.
Center Exit 537, approach send me, contact me. Can we switch to 120.05?
Stay with me.
Roger.
Alright, so we got, that's the beauty of that. So you guys maybe saw that up in the upper left that was telling us we weren't at 280. It gave us a little bit of advance warning. I think it pops up when it's the next sequenced point that has a restriction. And we were at 305 and we needed to be at 280. And as soon as we got down kind of within 280, the warning went away. So we're good at 280 until we get down to Orville at 250. And of course, that's below 10,000 anyway, so kind of redundant to have it there, but just so we know. The next thing that's going to happen is that top of descent. We can see that the aircraft has already decided what vertical descent rate it needs in order to achieve that vertical path that it wants to do.
And November 4 Delta Victor, what's your speed in the descent?
It's going to be 280 until, yeah, it's going to be published speeds, basically.
Roger.
So yeah, citations.
Center would be on, and you would be talking to him. But since he's not, I'm just going to hand you straight off to a regional approach.
5 Port Delta Victor, Roger, thanks. Yeah, so there would be a handoff from one center to the other. Remember on that spy, the little circle here is not exactly representative. It's kind of just a vague representation of the space. Map.vatsim.net probably has a better representation of that space. So map.vatsim or simware.ca probably has a better representation of that airspace. We might see that they're a little closer in boundaries than it appears. All right, the snowflake has come down. It's the little indicator of the vertical path. So as that captures, we're going to pull the throttles back down to about 50%. You don't want to pull all the way to full idle like you would in a jetliner. We don't have enough weight in this 17,000-pound aircraft to keep us up to 280 in a full idle descent unless we were to really pitch radically down. So the normal descent profile is somewhere around 50%, and then you kind of just modulate it to keep the speed restriction. 50 to 60% usually works, and then you can kind of adjust as needed.
Victor, contact regional approach 125.02. We'll see you.
All right, 25025 for Delta Victor. Thanks. We'll see you.
Delta 295, contact Houston approach
120.05. 02.
Houston approach 120.
And so we give them the current altitude, and then the altitude we're descending to, which in this case we can just say that we are descending via the Mundo 4. So that would tell them in one transmission, it would tell them that we're going to hit all these restrictions all the way down, which in this case is just Orville at 9. But anyway, profile descent, ordinarily instead of saying I'm descending to 9,000, you could say descending to 9,000 at Orville. But to say that I'm descending via the Mundo 4 just tells them that I'm planning on hitting all these restrictions on the way down, including the speed restrictions. Of course, I'm a little fast. Regional approach, citation 514 Delta Victor's 207, descending via the Mundo 4.
November 514 Delta Victor, regional approach, welcome. You can expect the visual runway 31 right into Love, altimeter 3035.
All right, 3035, we'll expect the 31 right, and we do have the ATIS information at Love, 514 Delta Victor.
Thanks a lot.
If I'd been really on my game, I would have told him what letter it was, but yeah, hotel. Okay, we can step that display ahead a few again.
JetBlue 1210 forward is offline, free change for time, great night.
Now we know we're told to expect 3-1 right visual. We still don't really know what we're doing after.
JetBlue 1210. Have a great night.
After Gary, it's still a 313. And it does still say expect radar vectors, even for the straight in. So we're still not able to just delete that discontinuity unless he says something like after Gary cleared ILS approach. But it can't, because Gary's not on this approach. So he'd have to tell us after Gary, she direct fascia. Then at fascia cleared ILS approach or something along those lines. But again, we're not getting the ILS, really, we're getting a visual. However, let's go ahead and start briefing that ILS. We are through the transition altitude, by the way. Remember, we set it into standby. We'll just bump it. And oh, now we're too high because of the change in pressure altitude. So as the plane pitches down to catch up, we'll have to pull a little bit of throttle out so that we don't surge up over 280. And then as it catches up, we'll have to put a little power back in so that it doesn't fall below 280. But let's just go ahead and brief the 3-1 right ILS as though we are going to fly it. Just in case the weather turns crazy sour all of a sudden and we can't accept a visual or something like that. It's always good to brief it just to note. Let's go ahead. We got it into the legs. We can check. Fascia, daddle, buckle, maybe not in there. Missed approach is 1,000 and then 5,000 to finger, so let's make sure that's all in there. If we go to the legs page, after Gary, again, we don't know how we're getting to fascia, then daddle, then the runway, and then finger at 5,000, so that's all correct. Let's do performance for the approach. The predicted temperature there from the ATIS was what now? Let's say 8, I think it says 8. And so we can go, not previous, next, 14 and 21. Powers of 7, that should be easy enough to remember. How we doing on speed? 265, so we're really supposed to be keeping 280. So we'll get her back up there. So missed approach altitude 5,000. We'll remember that. 111.5 and 313 should auto-populate, but we'll need to double-check that as well because we've seen that go wrong before. Minimums for a straight in, again, if we were doing an ILS, the minimum straight in would be 687. I think this one sets us by 10, so we'll have to round up. We can't round down, we can only round up. But we can go ahead and set the minimums to 690. Whoops. Barrow, 690. Trying to move that up there, and then whoops. 680, 690. Okay, set. So that's done at 21 and 14. And we are at 280, but it's warning us about speed because we're coming up on Orville, which we need to be at 250 at. And we know we need to slow down anyway because we're coming up on 10,000. But let's finish the approach briefing real quick. Frequency and course noted. Minimum set. The forecast winds are calm. Crosswind component would be 0. Forecast ceiling, I think it said clear, so no clouds to worry about as well. No visibility problems anticipated. Missed approach altitude we said was 5,000, and the turn-off route, if we make it down, where are we parking? Let's park just up here on the north side somewhere. General aviation is kind of in the middle here, so it's going to be a left-hand turn-off off of the runway if we do make it down successfully. So our approach briefing is complete. We can go ahead and start slowing it to 250. So we'll bring it down to idle. It should speed should bleed off pretty well. We can throw a little spoiler in if we need to. But the speed should come off pretty well at full idle in this jet, so.
Flight flight 902, regional approach, good evening.
We'll see how we do.
2321.
Cover through 10, we can get the logo lights and the landing lights on. Get the logo lights on there, landing lights on here. Get the passenger briefing for the arrival.
Altitude. May I have your attention, please? We will be landing shortly.
So we're 250. Throw a little bit of power back in. We're getting ready to level off at 9.
Return your seat to the upright and outboard position. Extend your headrest and fasten your lap belt and shoulder harness. After landing,
power back in. We're getting ready to level off, so we're going to need to add some power back in anyway.
Hunter flight 902 radar contact. 5 miles southeast of DFW Airport, send and maintain 4,000. Expect a visual, roll me 357.
So we've leveled off. We've got to watch the speed now. We've got to add power to keep the speed. Any change in pitch, you want to kind of match up with a change in power. We can see that the plane thinks we need to keep descending if we're going to make that.
Danger aircraft on frequency information, Lima current at DFW, winds 2705, altimeter 3034.
If we're going to make that descent to the runway, so we might need to get him to give us a vector. We'll step this ahead a little bit.
Frontier flight 902, expect a visual runway 357.
Oh, speed's still bleeding off. Let's get back up to 250, like we're assigned.
Regional approach, Southwest 421, checking in, flight level 360.
Southwest 421 regional approach, what's your current location?
I'm coming up to the Hyde waypoint, inbound to Dallas Love.
Alright, so if we, after he finishes this exchange with this aircraft, oh my goodness, We got hit with a major weather update there, and all of a sudden our speed's way fast. So let's get back down to 250.
421. I don't see you on my scope. It might be a server issue. I think try reconnecting for me.
You want to give me a squawk, and I'll see if I can see if I'll pop up then.
Southwest 421. I would give you a squawk, but unfortunately I can't since that system just isn't registering you.
Yeah, I'll disconnect, reconnect.
Thanks.
No departure, Challenger 624 Yankee Papa, short 31 right, ready to go.
Challenger 64 Yankee Papa, Love winds, calling them at 319 clear for takeoff.
319 clear for takeoff, 4 Yankee Papa.
Regional approach, Southwest 421, checking in.
Alright, so after Gary, we need to be on that heading. So let's go ahead and get on that 315.
Citation 514 Delta Victor, maintain 210 knots or less.
At 210 less, 514 Delta Victor. You still need us at 9,000 or lower.
Citation 514 Delta Victor, descend to maintain 4,000.
4,000, 514 Delta Victor, 210 knots. Alright, so actually going to do this. I'm going to take it out of VNAV into vertical speed. Just drop it to 1,500. Pull it all the way back to idle. That's got us on our 210. 313 is the heading we're supposed to be on.
12 o'clock, 15 miles toward the field site.
313 heading.
I've got the field. Southwest 11.
Southwest 11-1, you cleared the visual
So
approach.
we're going to need kind of a vector for descent, I would think.
Visual approach, 31
Slightly
right,
high.
Southwest 11.
We'll see. Maybe we can get back down to it. I will tell you guys that on the Slant Alpha Adventures channel, we do a contest with the prediction of the vertical descent rate upon touchdown. So if you want to start putting some guesses in as to the vertical descent rate, there's no bot command that's going to be necessary for that. Just a number into the chat, positive or negative, will do you just fine. But you can put a number into the chat that represents your guess as to the vertical descent rate upon touchdown. We have what we call the GEES landing stats pop up that's going to give us the actual number, and we'll use that as our contest decider.
Airport, you're 12 o'clock, 25 miles toward the field site.
Again, I fully expect we're going to need a some sort of a vector for the descent here, possibly. Matter of fact, to keep the 210, putting a little bit of spoiler into it.
Citation 514 Delta Victor, turn right heading 040 vectors for descent.
0405 for Delta Victor. Okay, kind of saw that coming.
Regional approach, American 5926 on left field, runway 31 right, ready for departure at Mike 2.
Alright, so throw the spoilers back in, stowed. I know it's concerned about the discontinuity. I'm going to tell it that we're going direct to fascia, even though we're not, but that'll just connect the points and matter of fact, I'm going to tell it we're going direct to Datley, as a matter of fact. Even though we're not, but that'll just sequence the points for the arrival when we get there.
Regional approach, Southwest 421. You got me on your radar yet?
Yeah, keep those predictions coming, guys. The last call is going to be 500. The 500 call.
Negative. It's very interesting. I'm trying to pull up your flight strip, but it's not allowing me to sign a squawk. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe try reconnecting with a different call sign.
Is it connected?
So I get a little closer to you and see if I pop up then.
Is it connected as an observer?
That's also a possibility.
You said what now?
Make sure you're not connected as an observer. Whenever you connect, there's a little checkbox that says observer.
Yeah, I'll try one more time.
Southwest 1101, runway 31 right, clear to land.
Southwest 1101, clear to land, 31 right.
Guys, keep those predictions coming. The last call for that's going to be the 500 call. Got to appear in the chat before the touchdown. But we'll just say, just to account for the buffering delay, you really want to have it entered in before you hear that 500 call. We can see we do have our localizer and glide slope indicators there, so 111.5 is indeed tuned in the way it should.
Delta Victor, turn right, heading 230.
Right, 230, 514 Delta Victor. At 514 Delta Victor, you still need 210, or can we slow it down?
Citation 504 Delta Victor, you can use your normal speed.
Okay. Yeah, so on the intercept, the final, I'd generally like to take it down to about 170, so we'll go ahead and do that. Get that first notch of flaps in.
Citation 514 Delta Victor, I think it was 210 knots or less, but that's fine.
Yeah, you're correct. For planning purposes, we're going to aim for about 170.
That's fine. Apologies on the late descent. I was working another traffic.
No worries. Below the 200, we can go ahead and get the first knots of flaps in.
Southwest 1101 contact, ground 121.75. Have a nice one.
Going to 0.75. Thanks.
Let's double check and see if we still do have the airport in sight. We know it's just to the right of the downtown area. I know it's out there somewhere. $12 miles. Yeah, it should be like right there. I think I do see it.
Challenger 4 Yankee Papa 4 is off the line, ready for his terminate. Please change for
yeah, it's just, yeah, there it is. Just, you can see the sequence of lights. I don't know how well that's coming across on the stream. The downtown area, then there's the sequence of lights that kind of flash left to right there. So that's what we're aiming for. At 170.
Regional approach American side, 26, ready for departure on the 31 right.
And against my better judgment, we're going to go ahead and make it my airplane.
Autopilot. For takeoff, runway 31 right, American side, 26.
So, we will control the horizontal, we will control the vertical.
3000, the Love field. You are 3 o'clock, 10 miles for the field in sight.
3000 gets field in sight, 514 Delta Victor.
Number 514 Delta Victor, clear the visual approach over 31 right.
Clear the visual 31 right, 514 Delta Victor. Alright, just 3000, and we'll go ahead and start turning in. We'll keep 170 till 5 miles. I'm going to engage approach mode on the autopilot. The autopilot. However, again, we are hand flying, so it's not going to automatically join for me. But we do have those guides now to help us, just in case the glare is too much for us. But we've got some help from the nav display. We got some help from the localizer and glide slope. We want to try and keep 170. Alright, we got it. Kind of dead ahead there.
Approach, American 5926, airborne testing 1400, maintain runway heading.
American 5926, regional departure bearer contact, climb maintain 17,000.
Climb maintain 17,000, American 5926.
There's our 5-mile final. Let's go ahead and get it slowed.
Citation 514 Delta Victor, wind is calm, low 31 right, clear to land.
Clear to land 31 right, 5-4 Delta Victor. Taxi light on. Profile's coming back in. Get that second knob to flaps in. There we go. Gears down in green. Last 35 set checked. We are clear to land. It's a visual, so we're not doing the charted mist. And it is 5,000 if we, 5,000 if we were going to go on the charted mist. Left-hand turn off if we do land successfully. Landing checks are complete. There's V approach of 121. At the 500 call, we'll take it down to the VREF of 114. Last call for those landing rate predictions, guys.
American 5926, turn left heading 180.
Left heading 180, American 59.
Start bringing that speed down to the 114. There's 114-ish. We'll keep it.
Minimums.
We are continuing. Power out over the threshold. Put in just a gentle flare. You don't need to flare this plane too much. There we are. Over the nose, spoiler out. Brakes in. That was much better than the last one. Let's see if we can make this next left here. Come back and get it. Not seeing on the airport diagram. The airport diagram might be a little bit different than what's on the simulator. Let's get clear and clean.
Delta Victor, contact ground point 75. I enjoyed watching the stream earlier. It was really great you're doing that stuff. Have a nice one.
All right, ground point 75, and you're very welcome. 5-4 Delta Victor. We'll see you. 2175. Left ground, citation 514 Delta Victor's off 31 left. I think Mike 3, or our scenery might not match up. Can you help us out?
Stay with approach.
All right. Yeah, my bad. Love ground, citation 514 Delta Victor's off 31 right, and we think we're Mike 3. If you could help us out, the scenery might not match up.
November 514 Delta Victor, love ground. Yeah, our scenery does not match up. In fact, where are you parking today? I'll try to help.
Just the GA ramp up by the fire station's fine.
November 4 Delta Victor, roger. I believe if you taxi straight ahead, you should run into Bravo. And go ahead and make a right there on Bravo. We're going to do a little bit of a progressive taxi.
Okay. Straight ahead, and we'll look for Bravo, make a right, 5-4 Delta Victor. Flaps and spoilers stowed. The landing lights off, strobe lights off, pitot heat off. Weather radar can come off. Now, so what's the sign say? Bravo and Alpha? Yeah, that doesn't look like... Doesn't look like the signs here are accurate, or maybe the taxiway layout has changed since the scenery was made.
4 Delta Victor, take the next left, should be on Echo.
Next left on to Echo, we see at 5-4 Delta Victor. Alright. We'll talk about the winning number here in just a moment. I do want to get the rest of the taxi-in items done. Get the terrain, weather radar off and the terrain radar off. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so if I'm south on Echo, then it should be right, next right turn. I'll show you guys on the map here.
4 Delta Victor, your next right should be on Whiskey, and that'll take you into the ramp.
Yeah, I'm not sure the layout matches up exactly, but I see where we are on the chart. We'll follow that in. 5-4 Delta Victor, thanks so much for your services.
4 Delta Victor, roger.
So,
have a good night.
Came off, I think we came off like somewhere in here, like maybe Alpha 3 used to cut through or something like that. And then we wound up doing something like this, and then we're about to make the right turn up to the fire station and then the GA ramp right there. So, no idea. No idea how well or poorly that matches up with what the controller's seeing, but that's where we're going to go. I wonder if there is a freeware update on flightsim.to for this aircraft, so certainly might be worth investigating, guys, if you're flying into this event from with Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. Let's double check. I've got all the taxi and items, flaps and spoilers, strobe lights, taxi lights, Pinto and static off, and the weather radar is off. We'll go ahead and get the taxi light off now since we're arriving at the ramp. And, yeah, we'll go ahead and park over here. That's fine. Talk about the winning number in just a few. Let's see, we got a few predictions. And, yeah, all we're kind of in the ballpark, so good. It'll be a good contest. Again, the landing rate prediction, guys, that's something that we do over on the Slant Alpha Adventures stream. So if you're not familiar, that'd be a great place for you to check out. Twitch.tv/Slant Alpha Adventures. We typically fly for you Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Obviously, we bumped tonight's show on that channel so that we could do this on this channel, a panel discussion that featured representatives from Fort Worth, Houston, and Albuquerque ARTCCs on VATSIM to get some tips and tricks for flying into the Friday Night Ops event that is coming up this Friday called Feel the Love. But over on our channel, we focus mostly on general aviation flying, so we don't do a whole lot of stuff with RNAV. But one thing that we do on that channel is a prediction of the vertical descent rate upon touchdown. And the closest predictor, above or below, gets an automatic entry into a monthly raffle that we're going to do this month on February the 23rd. So whoever was closest to 87 is the one that wants to kind of check out that Slant Alpha Adventure stream on the 23rd and see if you are a big winner. What do we got? 110.33. Were those the only two? Well, if those were the only two, and those are the only two that I see, it's our friend STW222 with an entry into that landing rate raffle, and I know that STW is a viewer over there on the Slant Alpha channel. So awesome, good to see a win for you. We'll get your entry into that raffle, and that we'll keep our fingers crossed that your name comes out of that fishbowl on February the 23rd. Again, Slant Alpha Adventures, guys, twitch.tv/Slant Alpha Adventures if you want to see how we do navigation the old school way. We do occasionally fly this jet here for you. We do occasionally also fly the 757. But for the most part on that channel, 9 times out of 10, it's non-RNAV flying, so all the old school radio-based navigation. Matter of fact, our next stream coming up on Wednesday is going to be pretty much visual navigation. IFR, I Follow Rivers, indeed. And that's, in fact, that's our series that we call the River Run. But we'll tell you more about that in just a few. Let's go ahead and finish up the shutdown and get this thing done and wrapped up for the night. We got the taxi light off, parking brake on. We can go ahead and get the engine number 1 shut down here. We're going to shut down the other one here in fairly short order. But we'll go ahead and shut down the number 1. We'll get the refs reset. Yeah, of course the thing's going to yell at us because there's low oil pressure in one of our engines. Heaven help us. Refs can go off, and we'll reset the refs menu. Yeah, we'll reset the warning again. Let's see. Refs menu, avionics can go to dispatch. The climate control can come off. Don't worry, we're going to let you guys up out of your seats here in just a few as we stop that number 2 engine, and that's that. Go ahead and get the seat belts. Oh, I never did get the seatbelt signs back on for the descent. That's okay. We did that passenger briefing, so y'all should reasonably have known we were getting ready to land. But now we can go ahead and get that beacon light off as well. And what else? Gotta get the logo lights off while I'm thinking about it. Safety and seatbelt lights can come off now, which they already are. We'll go ahead and reset the squawk to 1100. 1200. And we'll go ahead and shut that back into standby mode, which deactivates the mode Charlie. The fuel and ETA. So we know that the fuel was going to be more than what's in my spreadsheet. More consumed, by the way. Less remaining, more consumed than what's in my spreadsheet. The time, so we got airborne just a couple minutes late. We predicted 11:21 on the ground, 11:26 on the blocks. Yeah, we were a little bit later than that again because we were only doing 305 through the air instead of Mach 0.77. So that's going to be natural. Normally, if we do a full altitude flight in this aircraft, these numbers are very, very well dialed in. But because of the lower altitude, lower fuel economy, lower cruise speed, they're just a little bit off tonight. That 1876, I'm going to predict, let's see, about, what was the burn? The burn was... Trip fuel was 686. I'm going to say we used probably another 25% on top of that. So we're going to say we burned an extra 175. So I'm going to say instead of 1875, I'm going to say my prediction is we've got 1700 left. Actually, we'll say 1650. 1650. So that's going to be 825 per tank. We'll see how that stacks up to what's actually here. Heh, there we go. I promise I didn't look, guys. I promise. I'm perfectly willing to admit that those numbers are off or on sometimes. But yeah, that's normally the spreadsheet does a much better job, and you guys have seen that on streams before where the numbers are very well tuned in. So that was kind of what we call swag, scientific wild ass guess, and wow, that wound up a little bit closer than I even anticipated that it would, but I promise I did not cheat on that. But still pretty good. All right, let's finish up the shutdown, and we'll get you out of here for the night, guys. Do appreciate you flying along with us, and really the meat and potatoes of these Friday night ops FNO Preview shows is the panel discussion that happens on the first half. So I hope that you guys were able to see that, and if not, you can wind it back through the videos on demand here on VATSIM's. Yeah, VAT USA's Twitch channel, twitch.tv/VATSIMUSA. So wind this VOD back, catch it from the beginning. The representatives from Fort Worth, Houston, and Albuquerque ARTCCs gave us a great show as far as a great discussion as far as some of the tips and tricks to avoid some of the common compliance issues with procedures into, around, and out of these facilities. So do wind that back. It will be available on VAT USA's YouTube channel later on this evening or first thing tomorrow morning as well. So definitely check it out there if you missed it here. Let's finish up the shutdown, guys, and then we will close up shop for the night. The nav can come off. Avionics can go back over to standby. 1, 2, and 3, and I think whoops, and I think that is going to do it for us. So yeah, is that it? Let's go ahead and do our little closing shot here. Yep, that will do it. All right, guys. Well, once again, thank you very much to the team that was with us for that panel discussion. If you give me just a second, I will thank them all by name. Oh my goodness, I don't even have any of my notes in front of me. What a bad host. But again, Friday night's event coming up is the Feel the Love Friday Night Ops event. Every time we have one of those coming up, we do this Friday Night Hotspot FNO Preview show on the Monday before. And so that's what we had tonight, and we had a lot of great content from our friends from the Fort Worth ARTCC, the Houston ARTCC, and the Albuquerque ARTCC. Again, it was Martyn Musick, the Deputy Air Traffic Manager from Fort Worth, Mackenzie Kraus, the Fort Worth Facility Engineer. From the Houston ARTCC, we had Josh Seagrave and Michael Larosh. Thank you very much to both of them. And then from Albuquerque, it was the Air Traffic Manager, Alexandra Robison, and the events team member Evan Bradley was also with us. Great discussion from all of you guys. Appreciate your time and your trouble to help us put that together. All right, guys, again, it's the Feel the Love Friday Night Ops event this Friday at on the VAT USA division of VATSIM. Again, VATSIM, VATUSA.net. If you want to see any of the events that are coming up in the division here, let's go ahead and show that to you. Pilot tools and calendar, and it's the Feel the Love Friday Night Ops event. So hope that we will see you this Friday among Dallas Love, Houston George Bush, and Phoenix Sky Harbor. Should be a great event. Hope that you guys will wind back and watch that panel discussion. If you have any questions about how to get in, around, and out of those fields, please feel free to leave questions in the comments once this gets up on YouTube, and we will do our best to answer them. Have a great event, guys. Again, my name is Rob. I'm the host of a Twitch TV channel called Slant Alpha Adventures, so hope that you will check us out as well. Twitch.tv/Slant Alpha Adventures. Back on Wednesday at 7 p.m. We'll be in the JP Logistics mod of the Cessna 152 as we resume a series that we're running on that channel called River Run. We're doing a VFR flight down the Columbia River in a series of about 7 or 8 episodes. So catch us again for that, 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, twitch.tv/Slant Alpha Adventures. Thanks again for flying along, guys. Have a great event on Friday. Have a great rest of your week. Be healthy and safe in your own travels. In the meantime, we'll talk to you soon.